At the end of the Ice Age, I accumulated tens of billions of supplies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526 Upsilon. Zhang Yi lied that he had used Bing Po because he knew that Bing Po was unreliable. Once used, it will become the prey of Yuan Kang. Moreover, he couldn't guarantee 100% that the ice apparel would not have any side effects. Bian Junwu said, "You mean, let us use the ice soul to increase our strength and then break out?" Zhang Yi nodded. Now there is only one way to go. Everyone is a top alien. If you use the ice soul, maybe you can break through your limit and become a more powerful alien. At that time, there will be a chance to kill it. Bailey Chanking and the others frowned, feeling a little moved in their hearts. After all, the current situation is critical, and they must consider using all means to break through. Anyway, it is very difficult for them to leave the corpse alive now. Woody eagerly said to Bian Junwu, "Boss, let's try it." Zhang Yi even generously took out an ice soul. "This ice soul can be used by you." He has a total of 3 ice caps in his hand. He doesn't need too much of this kind of unstable thing. Bian Junwu took a look at Zhang Yi. Although he was wearing sunglasses, Zhang Yi still felt that his gaze was extraordinarily cold. Zhang Yi's heart couldn't help but feel cold. He has a feeling of being seen through. Didn't my little thoughtfulness hide it from Bian Junwu, an old fritter? Bian Junwu didn't take the Bing Po that Zhang Yi handed over. He reached out his hand to take out the ice cap that Yuan Kang gave him from his pocket. There are 2 in total, and he needs to leave one for the research laboratory in Jiangnan region. At this point, we can only try. Woody hurriedly shouted, "Let me come too." Others shouted, "Let's go together." They have experienced many life and death hardships, so they naturally know that the so-called Bing Po may have side effects. But now that the crisis is ahead, none of them is willing to back down. Even if there is a risk, they have to face it together. "No. It's enough for me to use alone." Bian Junwu took a deep look at Zhang Yi, then opened the small wooden box and took out an ice cap from inside. He just glanced at the white spherical meatball in his hand. It was soft, ice cold, and wriggled slightly, as if it was still alive. Without hesitation, Bian Junwu directly pressed Bing Po to his forehead. A deep smile appeared on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. His purpose was achieved. Bailey Chanking looked at Bian Junwu, opened his mouth, but did not speak. Woody had a painful look on his face. "Boss, let me do it, let me do it." They know why Bian Junwu did this. Because Bian Junwu's ability is seriously overdrawn, his life will not be too long. As early as a month ago, they knew that, even if Bian Junwu retreated to the second line to recuperate, he would only live for 2 years at most. But Bian Junwu resolutely chose to stay on the front line, in order to strive for better living conditions for his wife and children. This old captain, when faced with danger, always rushes to the forefront, sheltering everyone from wind and rain. Bing Po quickly merged into Bian Junwu's forehead. Zheng Yixin, who saw this scene from a distance, froze for a moment, and then an ecstatic expression appeared on his face. He didn't even dare to think that Bian Junwu could use Bing Po. That kind of powerful ability has never been seen in Qianhe City, and the attack power is simply unsolvable. And Zheng Yixin knew better that Bian Junwu would not live long. As long as he dies, his abilities will fall on Yuan Kang. At that time, Yuan Kang will become a true Epsilon level alien, the strongest LV5 known to mankind. And their wish is not far away. Bian Junwu absorbed Bing Po. He didn't experience fusion discomfort like Yang Mi did. Soon, an extremely terrifying aura emerged from his body, which made Zhang Yi feel a little trembling in his body. Others even had chills in their backs, which was an instinctive expression when encountering a powerful species. Bian Junwu straightened his body. He slowly took off the sunglasses on his eyes, revealing a pair of grey eyes. But now, 2 bright rays of light appeared in those grey-white eyes, which were so sacred, as if they could see everything. "It's been a long time since I saw the world with my own eyes." Bian Junwu regained his light, and he smiled in relief. At this moment, He felt that his state was very good, as if there was endless power emerging from his body. At this moment, he was finally no longer a goalkeeper at the Delta level, but officially stepped into the Epsilon level. However, as the huge power surged out, there seemed to be a rapidly expanding hole in his body. His power surged out from the depths of his body and slowly faded away as the hole grew bigger. Bing Po stimulated his potential, but it couldn't make up for the flaws in his abilities, but instead expanded them. Throat. A stream of blood dripped from the corner of Byung Junwoo's mouth. "Boss." Woody and the others shouted nervously. Byung Junwoo waved his hand, and he said to everyone in a low and gentle voice, "Close your eyes." Everyone obediently closed their eyes. They stopped the attack in their hands, and the tide of unstoppable corpses roared and rushed towards them like a huge wave that was about to overwhelm them. But at the next moment, in the middle of the group of corpses, a ray that was more dazzling than the sun, brighter and vaster burst out. No one could see what happened on the scene. They couldn't even hear any sound, just felt a soft footstep in their ears, as if they were walking towards the dawn step by step. Despite Byung Junwoo's warning, Zhang Yi quietly opened the gate of dimension in front of him, and then opened his eyes. He also wanted to see how powerful the frontier army was in a fully awakened state. With the defensive power of his dimensional gate, he still has the qualification to take a look. No matter how powerful this kind of pupil technique is, it won't hurt him if it's not aimed at him. Zhang Yi opened his eyes, and he saw Byung Junwoo's back. With his hands in the pockets of his black coat, he walked slowly forward. White light enveloped the whole world, and there were many black shadows in the distance ahead. It was a horrible tide of corpses, densely packed and countless. But Byung Junwoo turned a blind eye to them, as if they didn't exist. The moment the dense black shadow appeared, it suddenly dissipated like smoke. Zhang Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Byung Junwoo, he is releasing his last glory. After cleaning up the surrounding zombies, he continued to kill, to remove the biggest scourge for his teammates. This level of ability release will definitely make his hidden injuries explode quickly. Zhang Yi looked at his back with a touch of respect in his eyes. "Captain Byung, thank you for your dedication. Your sacrifice will not go to waste." Chapter 527 The Last Fireworks. I don't know how much time has passed, and no one else dared to open their eyes without Byung Junwoo's order. Because the pupil art of Nerience is too powerful. Even the members of the investigation team did not dare to open their eyes and look directly. What's more, the Byung Junwoo at this time has already used the Ice Soul, and the power he exerted is even better than before. Now he is without a doubt the real Epsilon. Only on the premise that Zhang Yi opened the gate of the dimension to defend would he dare to open his eyes and look at him at this time. Between the sky and the earth, the white light covering everything is slowly disappearing. There are no shadows of zombies around. Outside the range covered by the white light, the people of the three major forces were completely stunned by the scene before them. They are timid and afraid to approach. This is the first time they have seen such a scene in their life. It also let them see how terrifying the power of aliens can be. It turns out that aliens whose strength has reached the LV5 Epsilon level can really surpass weapons in the conventional sense. It can be called a humanoid nuclear weapon. There was madness in Zhang Yi's eyes, and the corners of his mouth almost couldn't help but twitch. No, I can't laugh yet. I'm only one step away from victory. That idiot Zhang Yi actually helped us so much. Ha ha ha. Now the leaders of the major bases in today's Sea City, including the Frontier Army, have used Ice Soul. As long as we kill them all, we are not far from realizing our dreams. On the battlefield, the white light slowly dissipated. Byung Junwoo turned around and walked towards the crowd. Zhang Yi quickly closed his eyes, pretending that he didn't see anything. But the next moment, he felt a hand on his shoulder. That hand was steady and powerful, as heavy as a mountain. Zhang Yi was a little nervous, only to hear a cold voice ringing in his ear. "Stop pretending, haven't you been watching well?" Zhang Yi smiled dryly and slowly opened his eyes. "You discovered all of this?" But when he saw Byung Junwoo's face, his smile became a little stiff. Because Byung Junwoo's face was very cold, and there was even a meaningful smile on the corner of his mouth. "Captain Byung, thank you for saving us all." Zhang Yi hurriedly looked at Byung Junwoo with sincere eyes and said. Byung Junwoo was unmoved, his right hand was still on Zhang Yi's shoulder. and a huge pressure enveloped Zhang Yi. Although he knew that the current Bian Junwoo's life was not long, after relying on Bing Po to break through to the Epsilon level, it would be easy for Bian Junwoo to kill him at such a short distance. You are so calculating, even I fell into your trap, Bian Junwoo said to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi's face also became calm, and he whispered, sorry, I didn't want to do this at first. This is a preliminary plan, and now there is really no other way, I can only do this. Zhang Yi did not lie. There are 3 sets of plans he prepared. The first plan was to take advantage of snow worship cult's fear of the Jiangnan region, forcing them to give up the zombie army in their hands. It's a pity that he underestimated the snow worship cult's ability to control the tide of corpses. In fact, at this time, when the tide of corpses completely broke out, the snow worship cult could no longer control the tide of corpses. Just like in the previous battle of snow worship cult, the bronze armored flying corpse would attack Yuan Kangai and others. The second plan is to let Bian Junwoo and others use the ice soul to forcibly increase their strength to defeat the tide of corpses. As for the third plan, Zhang Yi and the others gave up Xianhei City and escaped before the death of love came. If possible, he would not want to do that. After all, he and Bian Junwoo had no grievances or enmities. But when he was out of control, he would not hesitate to do so. Because there is nothing more important than him and the people around him being alive. Bian Junwoo shook his head. That's all. Anyway, my life is not long. In other words, I should also thank you. Without your proposal, I would not have completed the most magnificent bloom in my life. He lowered his head and looked at his hands. Is this the power of LV5 Epsilon level? It's really powerful. It's a pity that there will be no next time. Suddenly, his tall body shook, and the hand on Zhang Yi's shoulder was loosened. Zhang Yi quickly supported his body. Please rest assured, after you leave, I will solve the remaining problems in Xianhei City. Bian Junwoo couldn't help but glanced at him. Doubts flashed in his grey eyes. It turns out that you are still hiding a lot of secrets. So what is it? Bian Junwoo didn't wait for Zhang Yi's answer. At the last moment of his life, he completed a gorgeous transformation, sublimated to the utmost, and released the power that truly belongs to LV5. But this also overdraws his entire life. He fell into Zhang Yi's arms, completely silent. Not long after, the others sensed that the surrounding battle was over and opened their eyes one after another. The hundreds of thousands of zombies that used to be on the battlefield have almost disappeared now. Especially the powerful bronze armored corpse and bronze armored flying corpse. Not a single one remained. Some scattered ordinary zombies are still alive, but they can't pose any threat to everyone. Zhao Hanglian opened his eyes wide in disbelief, and his vocal cords trembled. It's over? Really, is it over? Just now she was ready to die, to be devoured by endless zombies. Now that the crisis is over, it gives her a strong sense of unreality. But the investigation team had no time to rejoice. They understand what an explosion of this level of power means to Bian Junwoo. Seeing Bian Junwoo in Zhang Yi's arms, Woody looked up to the sky and let out a desperate cry. Boss. He rushed towards Zhang Yi fiercely and then snatched Bian Junwoo from Zhang Yi's arms. His eyes were full of fear and he was flustered like a child. Boss, wake up, wake up. Don't sleep, you won't be able to wake up if you fall asleep. He desperately yelled in Bian Junwoo's ear, but only silence responded to him. Soon, this arrogant and domineering investigator burst into tears crying like a child. Zhang Yi retreated silently. He knew that now was the time for these people to say goodbye. Woody, Bailey Changqing and others hurried over and surrounded Bian Junwoo's body. Everyone had a sad look on their faces, but except for Woody, no one was crying. They just put their right hands on their chests and silently paid tribute to Bian Junwoo. In the last days, as fighters, they have experienced too many partings of life and death. This is not the first time they have seen such a scene. Perhaps in the future, this is the fate of each of them. There is no need for too many crying and words. Only the respect in the heart will last forever. Woody hugged Bian Junwoo's body tightly. Although his back was facing Zhang Yi could still see his shoulders trembling. It seems that his relationship with Bian Junwoo is not ordinary. one after another, wading hay, crossing Cheyenne. Zhang Yi and others who were originally in the distance also came to the scene. They did not expect that the matter would be resolved in this way. But seeing hundreds of thousands of zombies being wiped out, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Yi's heart blossomed with joy. Although hundreds of thousands of zombies have been lost, this kind of thing can be recultivated sooner or later, as long as the time and nutrients are sufficient. However, with the ability of Bian Junwu, this kind of gain can't be exchanged for anything. Make big, he thought, smiling. At this time, he looked at the people in the field, silently counting the number of people who use the ice soul. It's like an old farmer who has been cultivating for a season and is waiting to harvest. Chapter 528 Sudden One Knife. Wading hay and others walked over and sincerely paid respects to Bian Junwu. Without Bian Junwu's dedication, the entire Cheyenne city would be over. Woody hugged Bian Junwu's body and sat on the ground silently. The deputy captain, Bailey Changqing, had already put on a straight face, and no sadness could be seen on his face. The captain is dead now. According to the regulations of the district, I will temporarily act as the captain. He took the communication device from Bian Junwu and contacted the high-level officials in the Jiangnan region with a serious expression. Everyone also stared at him seriously. Now that the group of corpses has been wiped out, the Jiangnan region should also cancel the launch of the Death of Love according to what I said before. Bailey Changqing reported the situation here to ZHU Zheng. After hearing the news, ZHU Zheng said in a deep voice, "Is he still gone?" Bailey Changqing heard ZHU Zheng sigh softly. "That's fine. As a soldier, dying on the battlefield is his best destination. I believe he is unwilling to linger on a hospital bed." Bailey Changqing asked, "Commander, what is our next move?" ZHU Zheng looked at the big screen in front of him, and Bailey Changqing and the others clearly showed their figures on the screen. He said slowly, "Bring Bian Junwu back. The investigation team has lost its highest combat power and command, and it is no longer a complete establishment." ZHU Zheng didn't want to lose any more elite fighters in his hands. What's more, now that the tide of corpses in today's sea city has been cleaned up twice, there will be no major turmoil in a short period of time. "Yes, Commander." The call between Bailey Changqing and ZHU Zheng ended. He turned his head, looked at Zhang Yi and the others and said, "Blizzard City has cancelled the plan to launch Death of Love." Everyone let out a long sigh of relief. Cheyenne City was preserved, and the foundation and home they depended on for survival was also preserved. Zhang Yi came over, folded his hands on his chest, and chanted a eulogy, praying for Bian Junwu and the deceased. Regarding Bian Junwu's death, everyone didn't feel too much grief, but was grateful that his actions helped Cheyenne City to resolve the crisis. In fact, everyone is happy at the moment. Very abruptly, Zhang Yi suddenly took out the looming saber from the different space. Everyone looked at Zhang Yi in surprise. "Zhang Yi, what are you doing?" Meng Xiaoyu stared at Zhang Yi, frowning and asked. Zhang Yi turned around and fixed his eyes on Crossing Cheyenne, which made Crossing Cheyenne take several steps back in fright. "Zhang Yi, what are you going to do?" "What? Take your life?" Zhang Yi let out a sneer, activated at 8 times speed, and stabbed fiercely forward. PFFT. The precious sword made of Edmund metal is indestructible, and with Zhang Yi's supernatural ability, it can even cut through steel easily. So it easily penetrated a body. The blade glowed with a strange glow light, and a stream of blood slowly returned from the tip of the blade to the interface between the blade and the human body, staining the white cloak red. The smile on Zhang Yi's face disappeared. He lowered his head, looking at the tip of the knife protruding from his chest. His eyes were full of confusion. He didn't know where the knife came from, but after a short while, he wanted to understand everything. Because he saw Zhang Yi, who was obviously far away from him. Although the knife in his hand was stabbing towards Crossing Cheyenne, the blade disappeared in midair strangely. PFFT. Zhang Yi directly drew the long knife back. The existence of the blood groove made the knife more traumatic to the human body. After being drawn out, and the bleeding continued, Zhang Yi fell to the ground suddenly. His chest was stained red with blood. "Zhang Yi, what are you doing?" Zhao Hanglian frowned and yelled at Zhang Yi in a deep voice. Everyone else looked at Zhang Yi with caution. Even though their relationship with the snow worship cult was not harmonious in the past, they are now in the same boat and have just defeated the tide of corpses. When it was supposed to be a time of joy, Zhang Yi secretly assassinated him, which is really embarrassing. Bailey Chanking and other members of the investigation team frowned, but didn't say anything. They will not participate in the struggle between the local forces in Xianhe City. Zhang Yixin raised his head and stared at Zhang Yi. The priests of the snow worship cult protected Zhang Yixin behind them with angry faces, and then made a posture to fight Zhang Yi to the death. Liang Yu and the others also stood beside Zhang Yi, ready to fight at any time. Han Chang, who worships Su Jiao, has the hottest temperament. He bared his teeth in the incarnation of a flat-headed brother and was about to rush over. But the long knife in Liang Yu's hand was out of its sheath, and the sharp light of the knife made him quite afraid. Damn guy, I must kill you. Han Chang bared his teeth and roared. The atmosphere at the scene was tense, and a fight was about to start. Crossing Shan, Zhao Hanglian and Wei Dinghe looked at Zhang Yi with dissatisfaction in their eyes. Zhang Yi, why are you doing this? Zhang Yixin stared at Zhang Yi and said. Just now, Zhang Yi shot too quickly and directly penetrated his body. Although he is the top alien in Xianhe City, Zhang Yixin's supernatural power is mind power, and his physique is not much stronger than ordinary people. At this moment, his chest was pierced, and he no longer had the strength to fight on. So if they fight, it will be very unfavorable to them. Everyone knows how powerful Zhang Yi's team is. Wei Dinghe also frowned and looked at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, you need to explain this matter to us. Otherwise, we won't just sit idly by. Although they don't care about the life and death of snow worshippers. But Zhang Yi's approach was too dangerous, making them think that Zhang Yi wanted to take the opportunity to eliminate other forces in Xianhe City have to guard against. Zhang Yi held Looming in his hand, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Although just now, due to the use of double doors to attack, the grasp of the angle was a bit poor, and it did not directly penetrate Zhang Yixin's heart. But now that Zhang Yixin has lost his combat effectiveness, the situation is under his control. Zhang Yixin, it's already this time, do you still want to pretend? Zhang Yi squinted his eyes, stared at Zhang Yixin, and said word by word, aren't you the snow sect behind the biggest corpse wave in Xianhe City? These words were eloquent, but the content expressed in the word shocked everyone present. Zhao Hanglian's eyes widened. What? Is the snow worship cult behind the tide of corpses? Other forces, the investigation team, including the priests of the snow worship cult, also showed expressions of disbelief. Han Chang yelled at Zhang Yi, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you know how many congregants we have lost to the snow cult due to this tide of corpses? Crossing Shan also said to Zhang Yi, yes, the snow worship cult suffered the most in this corpse wave. If they were really behind the scenes, wouldn't they do such a stupid thing? Zhang Yi turned his head and looked coldly at Zhang Yixin, who was kneeling on the ground and clutching his chest. A gloomy and crazy look appeared in Zhang Yixin's eyes. He never dreamed that Zhang Yi would discover their secret. Shut up. Don't talk nonsense here. Do you think anyone will believe you? Zhang Yi laughed. Believe me or not, they will naturally analyze it after I finish speaking. Zhang Yixin, what are you afraid of? Chapter 529. Everyone listened to Zhang Yi's words. Although they didn't believe it in their hearts, it didn't affect them to continue listening. Anyway, Zhang Yi hurt Zhang Yixin, not them. Moreover, the information Zhang Yi uttered was too explosive, and they all wanted to hear what was going on. Bailey Chanking and others also stared at Zhang Yi solemnly. They still haven't figured out the cause of the corpse tide in Xianhe City until now. Even the captain Bian Junwu died in battle. They don't want to leave regrets. If you can investigate the cause of the tide of corpses and return to your command, you will be worthy of the sacrifice of the frontier army, and you will also have a way to explain to the high-level officials in the Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi said loudly, everyone. From the very beginning, all of this was a conspiracy of the snow worship sect. Everything starts with Bing Po. Ice Soul can awaken people's abilities, so it's true to increase potential. But its real function is to return the ability of the person who used Ice Soul to the original Khan guy's body after his death. That's why Snow Worship Sect gave us the Ice Soul so generously, and they spared no effort To start a war in Qianhai City, the purpose is to let more people die. Even if their own congregation is sacrificed, it doesn't matter. Ordinary congregants are only a burden, and they are worthless. They absorb a large number of congregants, just to select people with potential for supernatural powers, and then awaken their abilities. Then let them die, so that their abilities can return to Yuan Kang'ai. So, even if all the worshippers of the snow cult die, it doesn't matter to Yuan Kang'ai. Because from the very beginning, she didn't need so many congregants. Zhang Yi's eyes became gloomy. She has something better to use. That is the army of zombies she created. Compared to ordinary humans, this kind of undead army that obeys orders completely, is powerful and not easy to die, is her real trump card. Zhang Yi's words made the air quiet down. This information is so explosive that no one can easily believe it. Zhao Hanglian, Bailey Changqing and others couldn't help looking at Zheng Yixin's face, hoping to get some answers from his face. Zheng Yixin gritted his teeth and said angrily, "You are talking nonsense. Slander, he slander us. How could a snow worship cult possess that kind of thing? If we really had the ability to control corpses, how could we have been suppressed by your major forces? There is no real evidence, just rely on your own guesses to attack me." Zhang Yi, I suspect that you are the one behind the scenes. Zheng Yixin pointed at Zhang Yi and said coldly. Everyone at the scene looked at Zheng Yixin and then at Zhang Yi, and they were suddenly puzzled. Zheng Yixin's statement is obviously more in line with their understanding. Back then, the snow worship cult was squeezed out by their 4 major bases, and they could only survive in the cracks, using the ice soul to exchange for breathing space. How could it be possible to suddenly control an army of hundreds of thousands of zombies in just a few months? If Zhang Yi and Zheng Yixin are more suspicious, then there is no doubt that Zhang Yi is the right one. After all, up to now, Zhang Yi's power is still intact. Zhang Yi said unhurriedly, there is an abandoned building next to St. John's Cathedral, and there is a huge blood-colored vine growing in it. Its function is to absorb the nutrients of the corpse and the earth, and then cultivate the Corpse King. The Corpse King has the ability to spread viruses and create zombies. The snow worshippers didn't use this whole card before, either because they did it on purpose, or because the blood vines haven't fully matured yet. Zhang Yi stretched out his finger to Zheng Yixin and said flatly, since you say that I have no evidence, do you dare to take us to worship the snow sect? Dig that blood vine, and we'll know the result at a glance. Bailey Changqing, Zhao Hanglian, Wei Dinghe, and Crossing Shan were all moved. That's right, hearing is believing. Seeing is believing. In fact, when they were defending the snow worship cult camp, they all thought about the abandoned building. They also sent people to investigate secretly. It's just that the results of the initial investigation were not satisfactory, and it was found that it was just a mutated plant that could produce food. But what Zhang Yi said immediately aroused their suspicion. Zhao Hanglian crossed his arms and said to Zheng Yixin, if you have a clear conscience, just follow what Zhang Yi said and take us there to have a look. Wei Dinghe also said lightly, yes, we will know if it is true or not at a glance. At that time, we will also be able to return your innocence. Crossing Shan nodded. I also agree with this approach. Although Bailey Changqing and the others did not express their views, it was not difficult to see from the expressions on their faces that they clearly planned to go and have a look. After all, they also suspected that there was a problem there. It's just that time was limited at that time, and I didn't have time to observe carefully. Zheng Yixin's heart sank. He resisted the severe pain in his chest and said to Zhang Yi, how would you explain what you did if you found out there was nothing there? You can't stab me for nothing, right? The corner of Zhang Yi's mouth curled into a sneer. If you are found to be innocent by then, I will be wrong. Then, Zhang Yi drooped his eyelids. You can come and find me and work hard. You. Zheng Yixin was furious. What Zhang Yi did was tyrannical, but he had no choice. Even the other surrounding forces didn't think there was anything wrong with Zhang Yi's actions. Now is the end of the world. Killing and looting goods is commonplace. Several major forces fought life and death at the beginning, and there were many grievances. They didn't bother to care about Zhang Yi and Beizhujiao's affairs. They only care about whether what Zhang Yi said is true or not. Is the outbreak of corpse tide related to snow worship cult? Han Chang said angrily next to Zhang Yixin. Okay, we worship Zhujiao to go straight, and I'm afraid you will fail. However, he pointed his claws at Zhang Yi. If I find out that it's not what you said, I will definitely take out your intestines. Zhang Yixin suddenly shouted in a low voice. No. Absolutely don't let them get close to the bloodvine. A group of priests looked at Zhang Yixin, not quite understanding what he said. Zhang Yixin stared at Zhang Yi and said, the bloodvine is the foundation of our Zhujiao's livelihood. They must be playing the bloodvine. If you take them there, what if they grab the bloodvines by hand? Zhang Yi, you are so despicable. Since you want to fight, then we will fight with you. Zhang Yixin looked at Han Chang and the others. Come on. Let them know that our Zhujiao is not so easy to mess with. The priests believed in Zhang Yixin's words. Hearing Zhang Yixin's words, they rushed forward screaming, who had been holding back for a long time to fight Zhang Yi. Good come. The corner of Zhang Yi's mouth curled into a sneer. These stinky fish and rotten shrimps taught by Beizu are really not taken seriously by him. Chapter 530 Zhang Yi-039, S strength. When Zhang Yixin gave an order, more than a dozen priests roared and rushed towards Zhang Yi and the others. Zhang Yi and Liang Yu had already greeted each other. Although no one knew about the sudden attack on Zhang Yixin, they understood the issue of worshipping the snow cult. Therefore, everyone did not panic, but put on a posture to fight. At this time, Zhang Yi, who has always been stable, rarely walked in front of the crowd. He covered his eyes with his right hand and said lightly, enough, I don't have so much time to entangle you here now. When he put down his right hand, a white light flickered in the pupil of his right eye. Those who were watched by him only felt that the entire space around them was distorted. Suddenly, an indescribably huge force began to tear their bodies from all angles in the three-dimensional space. Puff, 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 puff. Almost at the same time, the upper half of the 7 priests exploded on the way forward, turning into bloody dust. The other priests froze in place in fright. The terrifying scene in front of him made the most courageous Han Chang lose the courage to charge, and his feet stopped on the ground in disbelief. Seeing this scene, Bailey Changqing was a little lost. Pupil technique. This is the first time Zhang Yi has shown his might in front of outsiders. He had used it during the Battle of the 5 Armies, but at that time the proficiency of Shen Wei was not high, and it was only used for fixed point killing 2 defeated aliens. But now, he has completely mastered this ability, killing 7 priests of the snow worship sect in one blow. Zhao Hanglian, Crossing Cheyenne, Wei Dinghe and others were dumbfounded by such a terrifying power. Only now did they understand how powerful Zhang Yi was. Those who can only defend and snipe, but are not good at melee combat, are all fake. At this moment, Fatty Zhu suddenly pointed to the distance and shouted, "Boss, the one surnamed Zheng has run away." Zhang Yi looked up. Zhang Yixin took advantage of the timing. When the priests charged, turned around and ran away. Zhang Yixin, who has telekinetic power, can control his body to fly at an extremely fast speed. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he said to Bailey Changqing and the others, "No, he's going back to inform Yuan Kangai. That woman is the most dangerous. We must get rid of her, otherwise everyone may die." After tearing their faces, Bailey Changqing stared at Zhang Yi. "Why should we trust you?" Zhang Yi replied calmly, "Trust me, you won't have any loss. Whether it's true or not, you can see it for yourself. The elites in the Jiangnan region won't be so easily fooled by me, right?" After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he ignored them, took out the snowmobile, and called his people to follow the snow cult. As for Han Chang and the other priests who were lucky enough to survive, they were scared out of their wits long ago. How dare they stop them? Bailey Changqing thought for a while, and immediately said, let's go and have a look. It's time to finish things in Cheyenne City. We have to know what's going on here, and we can't let the captain die without knowing it. The investigation team immediately decided to take a look. As for Zhao Hanglian, Xingshan and Wei Dinghe, they also have the same idea. Anyway, so far, there is no conflict between this matter and them. Since Zhang Yi took the initiative to suggest that the snow worship cult was suspected of manipulating the tide of corpses, they followed him to take a look. They will not suffer. So, everyone found a suitable means of transportation one after another, and then rushed to worship the snow cult. There are still 6 aliens alive in Baeksu cult, headed by Han Chang. When they came to their senses, Zhang Yi and others had already left. A stranger asked Han Chang Dao what to do. They have all gone to church. Shall we chase after them? A female alien next to him said in fear, but that Zhang Yi, he is too scary. He killed so many people in one go. Now the high priest was also attacked by him and was seriously injured. Only we can stop him? Han Chang gritted his teeth and said, we are members of the church. If the leader hadn't taken us in and bestowed us with supernatural powers, we wouldn't be where we are today. No matter what, we have to go back. If they want to fight, we will fight. After finishing speaking, Chang Han turned around and searched the vicinity for a while, finally finding us now mobile abandoned by other forces. He jumped up and said to the other priests, how do you choose? To go or not to go? The priests looked at each other, and finally 2 of them decided to go back with Han Chang and face Zhang Yi and others. Several other people chose to leave snow worship cult. Han Chang gave them a cold look, but at this moment he had no time to waste here, so he drove away in the car. The 3 people who stayed in the same place looked at me, and I looked at you, and they all let out a long breath. A skinny man with beard said, no matter what the outcome of this battle is, there is a high probability that we will die when we go back. We might as well find another way out. Han Chang and the others are loyal to Yuan Kangai and Zheng Yixin, but we are only loyal to ourselves. They see it clearly. What Zhang Yi said, whether it was true or not, made them have to be vigilant. In case what Zhang Yi said is true, everything is manipulated by Yuan Kangai and Zheng Yixin. Then those who accepted the Ice Soul and awakened their abilities, once they went back, they would inevitably be killed, and then the fate of taking away their abilities. Even if what Zhang Yi said was false, judging by Zhang Yi's resolute attitude towards killing people, he must have made up his mind to join forces with Baeksu. When they go back now, they have to face the powerful Zhang Yi team, and they still have to escape from death. Then, fleeing is the most correct choice. They should thank Zhang Yi for seriously injuring Zheng Yixin, otherwise they would not even have a chance to escape. Let's go. With our abilities, we can survive in this world no matter what. The bearded man exhaled a puff of white smoke, stared into the distance for a moment, then turned and left. The other 2 did not hesitate and followed him. In today's Xianhe city, there are hardly many living people left. There will be no shortage of supplies, just find a supermarket, shopping mall or warehouse, which is enough for them to live for several years. Snow Worship Camp, St. John's Cathedral. Yuan Kangai knelt in front of the altar, praying devoutly. Suddenly, she opened her bright eyes. Just now, she felt a powerful ability return to her body. Whose ability is this? Pupil art. It seems to be the investigation captain Bian Junwoo's. Yuan Kangai's eyes flickered like stars, and then he regained his composure. There was just a sweet smile on the corner of her mouth. She could clearly feel how strong Bian Junwoo was. But the next moment, she frowned again. Bian Junwoo is dead. How could he die? Who else in Xianhe City can kill him, and who else dares to kill him? Bian Junwoo has a special status, representing the Jiangnan region. His death will also attract the attention of the Jiangnan region. Yuan Kangai frowned. She vaguely felt that some situations seemed to be out of control. Chapter 531 Attacking the Snow Worship Cult. It was snowing heavily, and the camp of the Snow Worship Cult was dilapidated and desolate. It used to be as lively as a town, where tens of thousands of congregants gathered to resist the severe cold of the last days. But after a wave of corpses, more than % of the congregation died in the mouths of zombies. Only some strangers and their relatives survived. In the distant sky, a figure flew quickly. Zheng Yixin's face was pale, even paler than the heavy snow between heaven and earth. And his blood was bright red. A huge blood flower bloomed on his chest, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Although Zhang Yi's knife didn't hit his heart, it pierced through his chest. If he received effective treatment at that time, it is not impossible to save his life. But he knew that, if he continued to stay there, their affairs would definitely be exposed. So he had to come back and tell Yuan Kangai everything, so that Yuan Kangai could be prepared. He can die, but Yuan Kangai must be fine. When Zhang Yi landed in front of the church, several strangers who stayed behind saw him and were startled by his injuries. "High Priest, you." Zhang Yi didn't even look at them and directly passed them to the church door. His time is running out and he must see Yuan Khan Guy as soon as possible. Several strangers wanted to go to help Zhang Yi, but he forced them back with his eyes. Crunch. Zhang Yi pushed open the door of the church. Yuan Khan Guy seemed to sense something and turned around abruptly. She saw Zhang Yi who was seriously injured. Yuan Khan Guy's pupils constricted suddenly and she quickly walked up to Zhang Yi. When Zhang Yi saw his beloved, most of his breath was vented in the end and he collapsed all of a sudden. If it wasn't for the belief in his heart that supported him, he would have died on the way. Yuan Khan Guy reached out and caught his body. "Zhang Yi, what's wrong with you?" For the first time, there was an easiness in Yuan Khan Guy's cold voice. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand to treat Zhang Yi's injury. With her ability, as long as the person is still alive, she can heal, no matter how serious the injury is. However, Zhang Yi grabbed her wrist. "Don't waste abilities on me. My injury is too serious. Save me. It will consume you too much. Danger is coming soon. Our affairs are exposed and they will kill you. You have to live well." Yuan Khan Guy's arm stopped in midair and did not fall. Zhang Yi had a weak smile on his face. He looked at Yuan Khan Guy's indifferent face, but saw a trace of reluctance in her eyes. Zhang Yi smiled, and at the end, he understood that Yuan Khan Guy had no feelings for him. "You have to live on. For our ideals." He fell into Yuan Khan Guy's arms and slowly closed his eyes. Being able to die in the arms of his beloved was not a regret for him, but a kind of happiness. Not long after, Zhang Yi and the others also chased to the camp of Snow Worship Sect. At this time, those left behind by the Snow Worship Sect still don't know the conflict between Zhang Yi and Zhang Yi. Seeing that Zhang Yi was injured, they asked vigilantly, "What's the matter with the injury my high priest suffered?" Zhang Yi ignored them and looked at the concealed gate of St. John's Cathedral. He knew that Zhang Yi must have come to look for Yuan Khan Guy. At this time, Yuan Khan Guy was prepared, so it was not easy to sneak attack her. Of course Zhang Yi had no such plan either. Because at this moment, Yuan Khan Guy, no one knows exactly how many abilities and how powerful Yuan Khan Guy has mastered. He didn't dare to attack rashly. Bailey Changking and the others then arrived at Snow Worship Cult. They immediately walked towards the abandoned building next to the church. By now, the problem of the corpse tide should have ended. Whether or not the zombie crisis was brought about by worshipping the snow cult, they will be able to tell by just looking at it. Zhang Yi took them. "Come with me, I'll prove it to you." Zhang Yi brought the investigation team and other aliens from various forces to the abandoned building. There is an alien guarding the front of the building. He hurriedly stopped him. "Several, this is the forbidden area of our snow sect. You must not." Before he finished speaking, Kang Sheng appeared in front of him like a ghost, grabbed his neck, and pressed him against the wall. "Don't be noisy." The strange man rolled his eyes white, and soon passed out. Zhang Yi and the others went straight into the abandoned building. The abandoned building was still full of blood-colored brilliance, and the branches, leaves, and vines of blood vines covered every corner. This time they came here during the day, so the scene they saw was clearer and more shocking. At this time, there were more corpses hanging from the ceiling and the walls. After all, nearly, people died in that battle, and all of them could become the best nourishment for blood vines. There is a gloomy and strange atmosphere everywhere. Even if it wasn't the first time they came here, some people still felt their backs were chilled and a layer of white sweat appeared. The dead are not scary. What is scary is this weird scene that is almost religious. Zhao Hanglian couldn't help but asked Zhang Yi, "Where is the evidence for what you said?" They actually secretly took and studied the things hanging on the wall. It was found that those were just ordinary shriveled corpses, drained of all nutrients. So they are not the source of the corpse tide. Zhang Yi walked forward step by step and said lightly, "At the beginning, I also had doubts. We have studied these corpses, as well as the branches and leaves of this blood vine, and found nothing similar to zombie viruses." He swiped at everyone, but I soon realized that this is what they deliberately disclosed to let us know. "At least, you've all spied here before, haven't you?" If there are any important secrets hidden, they can't be so lax in defense. Everyone looked at each other and looked away tacitly. That's right, when they took advantage of the opportunity of defending the snow worship cult, they all sneaked into here and took samples for a search. Everyone quickly came to the body of the blood vine. The blood red plant, that was as huge as a world tree, stood upright, rooted deep in the earth, and topped the top of the abandoned building, and then spread its branches and leaves from the ceiling of the highest floor, covering every space in the building. Zhang Yi said lightly, "Zombies like to live in dark and damp underground. This is the preference of the virus that resides in their bodies. So it can be concluded that the cultivation environment of this virus must be the same as it. In the entire Shanghai city, scientific research sites that fit this environment have long since disappeared. Then, there is only here." Zhang Yi stretched out his finger and pointed to the ground at the root of the blood vine, and his eyes became sharper in an instant. This is his guess, but after combining various fragmented clues, this guess has become the closest to reality. And his arrival this time is to verify this idea. Chapter 530. To killing intent is boiling. Hearing what Zhang Yi said, everyone couldn't help but look at the root of the blood vine. Bailey Changqing frowned, stepped forward, and then punched the ground hard. With a dull loud noise, the ground instantly shattered. Large pieces of cement blocks and soil flew and were swept in all directions by Bailey Changqing's fist. Zhang Yi and the others could not help but take a few steps back, using various methods to avoid the flying earth and rocks. Soon, when the dust settled, everyone rushed forward to observe whether Zhang Yi's so-called evidence had appeared. The next moment, everyone's eyes widened, and there was a look of astonishment in the pupils, and there was a hint of fear surging. At the root of the blood vine, the dense root system has been spreading, and it is unknown how huge the land has been covered. And at the end of these root systems, they bear fruit like peanuts. That fruit is one corpse after another. A humanoid corpse covered in white hair, and a bronze-colored corpse with a huge body. Some have almost completed the transformation, while others are still in the process of transformation, still retaining the appearance of their human body. Everyone is familiar with them. Isn't that the Corpse King and Bronze Armor Corpse they fought with before? Unexpectedly, they all grew from the same tree. No, to be precise, it was cultivated. Because it can be clearly seen that some of them still retain human characteristics and are transforming into zombies. It turns out that the root of the disaster is here. Worship the snow cult, you bloody bastards. After understanding the truth, Zhao Hanglian clenched his fists and let out an angry roar. Not only her, everyone present was filled with anger. If this is a natural disaster, then that's all. They can only bear it. But this is a man-made disaster. And it was a long-planned, despicable, and shameless man-made disaster. Since the end of the world, the snow worship cult suffered the heaviest casualties. Yuan Kangai and Zheng Yixin used the sacrifices of ordinary people to gain the trust and sympathy of other forces. At this time, everyone who understood everything felt that they were being manipulated by the snow worship sect, like a group of fools. If Zhang Yi hadn't exposed the conspiracy of Zhao in time, what would have happened later? Just thinking about it a little bit is enough to send shivers down the spine. I'm afraid that once the investigation team leaves Shanghai City, Yuan Kangai and Zheng Yixin will reveal their true faces, and then wipe out the other forces in one fell swoop. This feeling of being stared at by a giant python is not pleasant. Despicable and shameless villain. There are people in this world who can be so ruthless, even plotting against their own people. Crossing Shine said angrily. He clenched his fists, and a look of fear clearly flashed in his eyes. On the investigation team's side, although no one spoke, their faces were all gloomy and terrifying. The death of Bian Junwu was a great pain to them. Now they discovered that the person who killed their captain was always by their side. They can't stand the feeling of being fooled. Bailey Changqing slowly raised his head. He narrowed his eyes, with a weird smile on his face. He suddenly opened his mouth, showing his white teeth, and said with a smile, "Hey, these guys have set up a big game. It's just that we don't like to be treated like fools. Just kill those guys." The killing intent began to pervade the surroundings. After everyone here knew the truth, they all wanted to kill the snow worshippers. Some are for their comrades in arms, some are for their family and friends, and some are purely for the loss of their own forces. In short, now, they have a common goal, which is to let the guy who played with everyone die. Zhang Yi looked at the murderous crowd, but didn't say anything. It's just that there was a flash of light in his eyes, and there was a deeper plan in his heart. No one can estimate the strength of Yuan Kang guy, who has absorbed the abilities of so many different people. Zhang Yi knew that she was very strong, but it is definitely not strong enough to ignore other aliens. If that's the case, she doesn't need to look at the face of the Jiangnan region. But, what about after getting Bian Junwu's ability? How high will her threat index be? Let's wait and see. Zhang Yi said to himself in his heart. Bailey Changqing carried his huge knight's spear, turned around and walked outside. When he passed the blasting expert Yi Zhikeng, he gave him a deep look. Liu Yi, destroy this plant. Such a curse cannot be left behind. Yi Zhikeng nodded. I understand, just leave it to me. The blood vine is the real mother of zombies, and only by destroying it can the tide of corpses in Xianhe City disappear completely. Bailey Changqing strode out of the abandoned building, and the rest of the investigation team followed. People from several major forces followed behind them without the slightest hesitation. Now you don't need words to communicate what you want to do. The culprit who caused the near destruction of Xianhe City, must die. Zhang Yi also silently followed behind the crowd. Before leaving, he glanced back at Yi Zhikeng. Yi Zhikeng walked up to the blood vine and put his hand on the blood vine. All I saw was a flash of black light, and a black thing with a strange shape, like an octopus, appeared on the blood vine. Ability user of the release system. From the looks of it, it should be able to condense supernatural powers and turn them into explosives that can be exploded at regular intervals. Zhang Yi didn't look at it too much, and kept staring at other people's ability research, which was easy to offend. He just remembered Yi Zhikeng's ability in his heart, and then walked out with Bailey Changqing and the others. Not long after, there was a violent explosion in the building. Then, the whole abandoned building collapsed, and Yi Zhikeng walked out of the explosion smoke with a calm face. At this time, the surviving members of the snow worship cult were startled by the loud noise and appeared outside. They watched the abandoned building slowly collapse, and at the murderous people like Bailey Changqing, they were too timid to step forward. Bailey Changqing didn't even look at them, and walked towards St. John's Cathedral with a knight's spear on his shoulder. Seeing this scene, some snow worshippers mustered up the courage to step forward to stop it. If you want to see the leader, you must be notified. A huge black shadow flashed across the sky, and the bodies of those people turned into an afterimage in the air, and disappeared in place in an instant. Zhang Yi only saw a large cloud of blood mist erupting in the air, and Bailey Changqing shot so fast that even he didn't see it clearly. But a few seconds later, there was a broken sound from the wall of a building hundreds of meters away. Looking from a distance, two huge pools of blood appeared on the wall, like a mosquito being slapped against a wall. Only Liang Yu stared at Bailey Changqing's back and cautiously reminded Zhang Yi, this person's strength is so strong, at least equal to 3 Ling Feng's, or even higher. In the past, in the eyes of Zhang Yi and the others, Ling Feng was synonymous with a perfect warrior, because his attributes such as speed, strength and agility are awful. But it was the first time that they saw a powerful warrior who could completely surpass Ling Feng in the field of reinforcement. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533. When all the truth has been exposed, a big battle is absolutely inevitable. Both of them lost something very important. Precious people, precious resources. These things are worth their hard work. Or like Zhang Yi, just fighting for a peaceful life. Just separated by a door, the atmosphere on both sides was already tense like a bowstring that would break at the touch of a touch. The believers of snow worship cult gathered around, but only a few fighters and the most devout believers were still there. Most of the congregation without combat effectiveness curled up nervously in their houses, afraid to see what happened like ostriches. But at this time, Li Jian was lying on the window watching all this with his wife in his arms. A look of madness flashed in his eyes. Son, have you seen it? Dad has avenged you. That lunatic Yuan Kang guy's going to die today. Headed by Bailey Changqing, Zhao Hanglian and other forces, a total of more than 30 aliens gathered here. They stared at the white gate decorated with sacred patterns, but no one rushed in rashly. Wu Di took a step forward, a huge ball of light appeared all over his body, and then, like a sharp sword, the floating cannon blasted towards the gate of the church. In an instant, the door of the church was smashed to pieces. Zhang Yi's eyes were fixed on the inside of the church. The moment the door shattered, he saw what was inside. Under the altar, Yuan Kanggai sat on the steps, holding the dead Zhang Yixin in his arms. When Wu Di's floating cannon approached her body, it was blocked by an invisible force. After seeing Yuan Kanggai, Wu Di's eyes burst out with strong hatred. For him, Bian Junwu is like a father. And when Bian Junwu dies, he will blame anyone who caused this result. What he hates the most, of course, is the leader of the snow worship sect. Give me death. Wu Di stood at the front, and hundreds of light spheres emerged around him at the same time, reflecting him like a god. The densely packed floating cannons shot out like a storm, carrying the terrifying power to destroy everything. At this time, Yuan Kanggai finally raised his head to look at them. In those eyes, that were as indifferent as icebergs, that would not melt for thousands of years, a strong hatred burst out. In this world, the last person worthy of her trust also died. Zhang Yixin, welcome back. In fact, I have always wanted your mind power. Yuan Kanggai put Zhang Yixin's body on the ground, and stood up slowly. Within 10 meters of her as the center, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared. The powerful floating cannon almost destroyed the church, but it couldn't get past her wall of thoughts. Zhang Yi reminded, she has at least dozens of abilities on her body. Everyone should be careful. Zhao Hanglian's eyes were filled with killing intent. No matter how powerful she is, I don't believe that the power of all the aliens in Xianhei City can't kill her. Her whole body was already covered by crimson flames, and dark red lava-like lines flowed on the surface of her skin. She quickly ran to another direction, and spit out a huge fire dragon towards Yuan Kanggai. There is no need for anyone to deliberately order. The strangers present here can live up to now. They are all the elite of the elite, and they understand how to fight and cooperate. The crowd divided into 3 directions, using the long-range attack ability to attack Yuan Kanggai. As for the melee type enhanced and beastman type ability users, they are ready to wait for Yuan Kanggai to show up and rush forward to give her a sure kill blow. All kinds of supernatural powers flew towards Yuan Kanggai like a torrential rain. However, no matter what kind of attack he faced, Yuan Kanggai's face remained unmoved. There seems to be a spherical field outside her body, which can block any attack. In Zhang Yi's eyes, white brilliance was shining. He really wanted to know if his divine power could break through Yuan Kanggai's thought power barrier. But this is his trump card, and it cannot be used lightly. He must wait until the right opportunity arises. But at this moment, Yuan Kanggai's body suddenly floated up into the air. She looked down on everyone like a deity descended from the world. Seeing this scene, the believers who worship Snow Cult in the distance knelt down excitedly on the spot, shouting the name Snow God. In their mouths, Zhang Yixin's ability. Zhang Yi said. At this time, Han Chang also rushed to the scene with 2 strangers. They were extremely anxious at first, fearing that Yuan Kanggai would be murdered by Bailey Changqing and Zhang Yi. But seeing the scene in front of them, their faces were full of astonishment. Priestess Yi Chunhua clasped her hands excitedly and said excitedly, "Is this the blessing of the snow god? My lord, she is worthy of being the human body of the snow god." But after seeing this scene, Han Chan felt that his throat was a little dry and most of his blood was cold. But, isn't that the ability of the high priest? Zhang Yixin's telekinetic power is very powerful, and the most enviable thing is that he can control his body, get rid of the control of gravity, and achieve high-speed flight. But now, this ability appeared in Yuan Kanggai. Could it be everything Zhang Yi said is true? The so-called ice soul is completely a huge trap for cutting leaks. So, Yuan Kanggai was so merciful and gave them the opportunity to awaken their abilities. Was it all false? Han Chan no longer dared to continue thinking about it. The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became, feeling that his faith had collapsed. At this time, Yuan Kanggai, suspended in mid-air, looked down on all living beings like a god. She let all kinds of supernatural powers attack her, but she remained motionless. Woody couldn't believe his eyes. His floating cannon is more powerful than a sniper rifle, even close to the power of a real rocket launcher. But why so many floating cannons were so easily picked up by Yuan Kang'ai? Zhang Yi sensed that something was wrong and silently retreated behind everyone. Yuan Kang'ai looked at them and said coldly, "Stupid and insignificant people. You have no idea what kind of existence you are fighting against. I'm the apostle of the gods in the world, and the messenger who exercises the power of the gods. All acts of desecrating the power of the gods will be punished by heaven." After she finished speaking, she suddenly opened her arms slowly. "Let me cleanse this world of no faith." As her arms began to lift, the ground under everyone's feet suddenly began to tremble violently. Zhang Yi and the others were unsteady on their feet and almost fell to the ground. Cracks appeared on the ground, like an earthquake. Under Zhang Yi's surprised eyes, the ground actually began to float up. Zhang Yi has turned on the eightfold speed, and the figure retreats like a ghost. Others also felt that something was wrong, and they all moved away from Yuan Kang'ai's position. However, all the surrounding buildings are collapsing, the ground is shattering, and huge boulders are rising into the sky, like meteorites all over the sky. Such a powerful ability made Bailey Chanking and the others shrink their pupils. They knew Yuan Kang'ai was very strong, but they didn't expect her to be so strong. They had seen this kind of power that seemed to destroy the world an hour ago. Unexpectedly, they met again so soon. LV5, the power of an alien at the Epsilon level. After absorbing the abilities of Bian Junwu and Zheng Yixin, Yuan Kang'ai successfully broke through to this rank. Yuan Kang'ai looked at the crowd coldly, and Bainen's right hand pressed down hard. Boulders all over the sky smashed towards the people on the ground like shooting stars. Chapter 534 Invincible. Countless huge boulders rose to the sky, and then quickly fell to the ground under the horrified eyes of everyone. Within a few kilometers, this is an indiscriminate attack, like a meteor shower. But it is not beautiful, but full of shattered terror. Seeing that it was too late to dodge, everyone was trying their best to resist with their own abilities. Bailey Chanking laughed loudly, and the huge knight spear in his hand danced like a windmill. Facing the boulders constantly falling from the sky, he forcefully picked them up with his lance. That is a huge boulder weighing several tons or even dozens of tons. Not to mention people, even if a truck is hit, it will be crushed into a discus. But Bailey Chanking made them deviate from the original track by relying on his own powerful strength and two-handed marksmanship. He stood in front of everyone and didn't take a step back because Bian Junwu was dead at this time and he was the captain of the investigation team. He has to shield the players from the wind and rain. Facing this kind of attack, Zhang Yi was the easiest to deal with. The door of his dimension opened. No matter how huge the stone fell, it just disappeared into another dimension without a sound. Compared to the two of them, the others looked much more embarrassed. The flame attack practiced by Xiao Han has little effect on the boulder. She can only use the function of the purgatory furnace to strengthen her body and quickly dodge in the meteor shower. But the rocks pierced through the air, and the boulders fell one after another, making her extremely embarrassed. And because many aliens couldn't dodge in time, they didn't even have a chance to scream after being hit by a boulder, and they turned into a puddle of meat. "Come to me," Zhang Yi shouted to everyone. At this moment, in order to deal with Yuan Kang'ai, everyone's strength must be gathered. If the others were killed, Zhang Yi would be alone, and he had to try his best to protect these people. Seeing that Zhang Yi easily blocked the rain of boulders with the gate of the dimension, the others immediately gathered in his direction. As enemies, they gritted their teeth with hatred for Zhang Yi's spatial ability. But now as comrades in arms on the same front, this ability gave them a great sense of solidity. Everyone quickly ran behind Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi opened the huge dimensional door and blocked it above his head, as if he had opened a big umbrella to prevent the raindrops from falling on everyone's heads. It's just that the raindrops are not water, but boulders that can turn people into flesh. It's just that they can hide under the gate of the dimension, but some people have no way to hide. That is the ordinary believers and aliens of Snow Worship sect. When they first saw Yuan Kang'ai displaying miraculous means, they all bowed down and were overjoyed in their hearts. But Yuan Kang'ai's attack is indiscriminate, covering them as well. Unprepared, they were wiped out in an instant. "You guys come back too." Yuan Kang said lightly. The remaining aliens of Snow Worship Cult have no extra value now. It's better to let them return to the kingdom of God, and then their power will gather on Yuan Kang. Zhang Yi is dead. Yuan Kang must win this battle. Only in this way can they build a world free from filth. The three of Han Chang noticed something was wrong from the very beginning, so they didn't get close. But seeing Yuan Kang kill all the congregants with his own eyes, their faith has completely collapsed. How could this happen? My lord, why did she kill devout believers? Yi Chunhua cried in despair. Gritting his teeth, Han Chang quickly retreated with the two of them to avoid the attack of the boulder. It turns out that what Zhang Yi said is true. She is not a savior at all. She is a devil and a lunatic. Yuan Kang noticed them, but her eyes were indifferent like extremely cold snow. Fortunately, at this time, her attention was on Zhang Yi and the others, and she did not deliberately kill Han Chang and the other three. Otherwise, with her current strength, killing the three of them would be a breeze. Yuan Kang lowered his head and stared at Zhang Yi and said softly, I really want your power of space. She slowly raised her hand like a god and pointed a finger at Zhang Yi and the others. On the ground, the boulders that had already fallen shook violently and then rose into the air again, turning into a huge storm of rocks around Zhang Yi and the others. There are flying boulders in all directions, and Zhang Yi and others are in the center of the storm. Zhang Yi's eyes froze. He could only open two-dimensional gates at the same time and couldn't defend in all directions at all. Yuan Kang's mind control is much stronger than Zhang Yi's. It's not at the same level at all. But the others were not idle either. Crossing Shine activated his ability, Crossing Shine Legion. This is a kind of ability that can be blessed on everyone to improve combat effectiveness. These are the strongest alien legions left in Xianhei City, and with the blessing, their combat effectiveness has been raised to a higher level. The Flame Dragon breathes. Ice Storm. Zhao Honglian and Wading He shot at the same time. The flames and blizzard swept away in two directions, impacting the chaotic rocks there. And Qi Guangming of the investigation team raised his head, looked at Yuan Kang in the sky, and solemnly raised his black sniper rifle. Catch the thief first to capture the king. Only by solving Yuan Kang can everything come to an end. Just dealing with Chaoshi is useless. A stream of black light shot out from the muzzle of his gun. Yuan Kang's eyes were cold, and he didn't care about the bullet at all. But the next moment, her brows were slightly frowned. Because this bullet actually penetrated her mind barrier. However, the bullet stopped when it was less than 1 meter away from her. Qi Guangming's frown deepened. She has too many kinds of abilities, and she can't handle it at all. Zhang Yi looked at him curiously. What kind of bullet did you use that could penetrate her mind barrier? He clearly remembered that Wu Di's countless floating cannons before could not affect the thought power barrier in the slightest. Qi Guangming glanced at him. Origin bomb. It is specially used to deal with mutant creatures. Mutated creatures, of course, also include aliens. Hearing this, Zhang Yi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The Jiangnan region is the Jiangnan region. Less than half a year after the end of the world, even the bullets specially designed to deal with aliens have been researched. But thinking about it carefully, this thing has no effect on him. Because strictly speaking, his dimensional gate is not a defensive ability, but a door leading to another dimension. Origin bullets are mostly used to attack aliens who rely on supernatural powers to defend, such as reinforcement, orcs, and aliens with mind barriers. At this moment, Bailey Chanking's voice interrupted his thinking. I can't continue to let her master the rhythm like this. From now on, everyone listens to my command. He stared at Yuan Kang in the sky. His eyes were more focused than ever before. No matter how powerful her abilities are now, a young girl still lacks combat experience. Then, it's easy for her to show her flaws. Chapter 535 The Final Battle 1. Bailey Chanking quickly formulated a battle plan for everyone. He has discovered a weakness of Yuan Kang. That is, she can't do two things at once. When Qi Guangming used the origin bomb to attack her, her ability to control her mind power dropped significantly, and the speed of the storm of rocks slowed down. You continue to attack with long-range skills, Qi Guangming, and use the origin bomb to restrain her actions. I'll be in charge of the main attack. As for the killer move, Bailey Chanking glanced at Zhang Yi next to him. From the beginning to the end, Zhang Yi never made an attack. but Bailey Changqing knew that he had hidden a big killer move Shen Wei. Although the attack range is not very large, but in terms of power, Shen Wei is definitely no less than the Nirvana of Bian Junwu. We will win you a chance and give Yuan Kang'ai a fatal blow. Bailey Changqing said with a smile. I used to entangle her. If necessary, you can kill her together with me. Zhang Yi, Zhao Hanlian and others couldn't help but tremble when they heard this sentence. Bailey Changqing was able to do so decisively in order to kill Yuan Kang'ai. But when the rest of the investigation team heard this, they seemed to be familiar with it. They have long put life and death aside in order to perform their tasks. It's not that you don't fear death, but sometimes sacrifice is necessary, otherwise, it will cause even greater losses. Just like today, if they can't kill Yuan Kang'ai, no one can leave alive. Zhang Yi nodded. Okay. Bailey Changqing chooses one person to bear the greatest pressure. Because among the people present, in terms of melee ability, no one can even come close to his level. Okay, let's get started. Bailey Changqing gave a loud shout. Zhao Hanlian and others quickly made a move and launched a fierce attack towards Yuan Kang'ai. Qi Guangming also raised his gun and fired another round of origin bullets. Yuan Kang'ai knew that the pitch black bullet could not be careless, so he frowned slightly and raised his hand to condense a huge ice wall in front of him. Although the origin bullet has special functions against aliens, as a bullet, its physical attack ability is relatively general. The huge ice wall blocked it. Yuan Kang'ai waved his right hand, and all the supernatural abilities that attacked her were extinguished in the air like a flame being poured with water. And at this moment, Bailey Changqing had turned into a black lightning bolt, leaped high from the ground, and charged at the back of Yuan Kang'ai with a huge knight's spear in his hand. Silently, moving like thunder, with tremendous force, the lance pierced Yuan Kang'ai's back. Yuan Kang'ai's eyes froze. She didn't look back, but she had already sensed Bailey Changqing's attack. But an invisible ripple swayed in the air, and the mind barrier blocked her back. But the huge knight's spear pierced through the barrier for half a meter and was only less than centimeters away from her back. Bailey Changqing held the knight's spear tightly with both hands, and his silver teeth were about to be crushed. He couldn't continue to exert force in the air, and if this power-up attack failed, it also failed. But at this moment, Zhang Yi made a move. The momentary distraction of Yuan Kang'ai that everyone has won is the moment for his divine power to make a move. The white light flickered in his pupils and then aimed at Yuan Kang'ai in the sky, even covering Bailey Changqing behind her. When a master fights, life and death are in the blink of an eye. Yuan Kang'ai's moment of distraction allowed Zhang Yi to complete the lock. The terrifying coercion distorted the space and finally caused a touch of shock to appear in Yuan Kang'ai's eyes. Between her and Zhang Yi, a strange distortion appeared in the space. It was like a rag being wrung by two people from opposite directions. At this moment, a dazzling white light burst out from Yuan Kang'ai's eyes, covering the surrounding world. Silently, a grotesque sphere appeared in the space between the two, and even the light was distorted. But after a while, the dazzling light dissipated in the air. Everything returned to calm. Only a huge and smooth spherical depression appeared on the ground below the ball of light, like cheese scalded by a red-hot iron. Boom. A figure fell to the ground like a meteor, and Bailey Changqing, who was wearing a black combat uniform, was thrown onto the ground. At this moment, a trace of blood overflowed from the mouth of this man of steel and steel. Ahem. Captain's Nirvana, how she grasped it so quickly? Bailey Changqing looked at Yuan Kang'ai solemnly and said. He couldn't be more familiar with that power just now. It is Bian Junwu's pupil technique, N.I.M.E. She has even mastered Bian Junwu's abilities. Zhao Hanlian said in astonishment. They have seen with their own eyes how strong Bian Junwu is. That is a terrifying ability that can kill 10,000 plus zombies on its own. Now that Yuan Kang'ai has obtained Bian Junwu's ability, how can they still fight? Bailey Changqing stood up and said loudly, no, she is not the captain. She just got this power, and she is not mature enough to use it. We can defeat her. He was very sure of it. Because if it was the ability used by Bian Junwu just now, he would not be able to stand up now. Yuan Kang'ai's eyes kept staring at Zhang Yi. The appearance of Shen Wei made her feel a pressure. That kind of power is enough to fight against her. but Zhang Yi silently took out a meat bun and stuffed it into his mouth. Shen Wei consumed too much of him, and he had to replenish his powers in time. Fortunately, he is a space-type ability user, and fighting attrition wars is his strong point. But no one noticed that there was a killing intent in Yuan Kangai's eyes. In the beginning, she didn't pay attention to these people. With great power, she thought that she was close to the realm of gods, and these weak mortals couldn't do anything to her. However, Zhang Yi's supernatural power caused a trace of fear in her heart. Maybe these mortals really have the ability to hurt her. This trace of fear made her angry, so she decided not to play anymore, but to kill everyone in front of her as soon as possible. A bigger storm spun around her. The black whirlwind engulfed countless gravel, ice, and snow, and everything around it, turning into a huge tornado. Then this huge tornado slammed into everyone. Careful, run. The tornado attracted everything around them, and everyone's feet became unstable. They retreated hurriedly to avoid being swept into the middle of the tornado. Once you enter it, that is the inevitable end. But after they thought they had run far away, a raging snowstorm rolled over the ground again. Wind, snow, gravel, all kinds of terrifying abilities were displayed by Yuan Kangai. For a moment, everyone had no way to resist. Their abilities are of course very powerful, but their levels are completely different. When the Yiren reaches LV5 Epsilon, which is currently the strongest level of human beings, they do not belong to the same dimension as the lower Yiren. So far, there is only one legendary Epsilon in the entire Hua Kingdom. Counting the short-lived Ban Junwu who gained strength by burning his life, Yuan Kangai is the third. And it's perfect Epsilon. Chapter 536 The Final Battle 2. Facing Yuan Kangai's frightening power, everyone was resisting with difficulty. Zhang Yi's dimensional gate couldn't protect everyone. But this kind of bug defense method that can defend against all physical attacks can keep him, Huata, Liang Yu and others safe and sound. How to fight this? She has too many abilities, and it is impossible to find her weakness. Boss, let's escape. Fatty Zhu suggested. Escape? Where are you going? Zhang Yi stared coldly at Yuan Kangai in the center of the storm. Do you think we can escape now? If there is only Zhang Yi alone, there is absolutely no problem in escaping. But it won't work with a few of them. After all, he himself can reflect the speed of space travel, but they can't. As long as there is a delay in the middle, it will delay time, and then Yuan Kangai quickly catches up. There is only one battle now. If we win, Chionhei City will be peaceful from now on. If you lose, think about losing again. Zhang Yi fixedly stared at Yuan Kangai in the sky, and the power in his right eye was ready to go. Yuan Kangai felt this force, and her figure suddenly became unreal, as if countless after images overlapped together, making it impossible for Zhang Yi to lock her position. However, Zhang Yi's biggest advantage is a large number of people. Bailey Changking said that Yuan Kangai's combat experience is not rich enough. Even if he has enough strength, it is still flawed. Now with Zhang Yi's supernatural power as a check, Yuan Kangai couldn't concentrate on dealing with them, so they had a chance to attack from the side. Crossing Shine turned on his abilities to the maximum extent and blessed everyone. Qi Guangming raised the sniper rifle in his hand, and the origin bullet aimed at Yuan Kangai's head, which also put a little pressure on her. Although she is not afraid of Qi Guangming, if she accidentally gets shot, it is not something she is willing to accept. Bailey Changking held a knight's spear, cautiously looking for a chance to kill with one blow. Although his defensive power is astonishing, if he is attacked by Nirvana at close range, he may also be smashed to pieces. You want to resist me? Do you think you can do it? Yuan Kangai's voice echoed coldly in the sky. As she waved her hands, a more terrifying storm swept in all directions, as if she wanted to kill everyone with one blow. And the main targets of the attack are Zhang Yi and Qi Guangming. Feeling this, Zhang Yi immediately opened the double doors and disappeared in place with everyone. The moment they left, countless gravels fell from all directions at the foothold just now. However, Qi Guangming did not have the convenience and ability to escape like Zhang Yi, and Yuan Kangai's power covered every corner around him. As long as he looked up, he could see a black whirlwind hundreds of meters high surrounding him in the center. There is no way to avoid it. Yuan Kangai seems to be a higher dimensional creature, playing with his life at will. Break it for me. Just when Qi Guangming was at a loss, a familiar orc came from beside him. A huge knight's spear tore a hole from the storm. Bailey Chanking, who was wearing a black combat uniform, rushed in, then grabbed Qi Guangming under his arm, and rushed out carrying the storm. Oh, what a strong defense. When Yuan Kanggai saw this scene, she recognized that it was the vice captain of the investigation team, a top-level enhancement system ability user. But how long can you resist my attack? Within a radius of 3 kilometers, rocks pierced through the sky, and everything in the world became the object of her manipulation. Her energy seemed endless, and she continued to attack everyone. Divine power. Zhang Yi's attack strikes again. Yuan Kanggai's attention was always on Zhang Yi, and she did not hesitate to use Nirvana to fight against him when she saw this situation. The person who threatens her the most is this man with the ability to kill with one blow. The two forces burst out a strange light in the air and then disappeared. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said to Liang Yu and the others very quickly, "Get out of here quickly. The current battle is beyond your control. Human seed tactics have no effect on aliens beyond the general meaning. Now on the entire battlefield, there are probably only a few of them who can have a certain impact on Yuan Kanggai. Others staying here are just a living target for Yuan Kanggai and a burden for his teammates." Therefore, Zhang Yi asked Tuahua to take everyone else away. Even for Liang Yu, her melee combat ability is difficult to play a big role at this time. But Liang Yu wanted to argue, but then she saw Zhang Yi's serious and terrifying face. Time is running out, and Zhang Yi doesn't want to waste time with them. You must obey his orders. Liang Yu was a little frightened by Zhang Yi's eyes, but soon she also wanted to understand that her ability would not be of much help to Zhang Yi, and it would even affect Zhang Yi's ability to use space shuttle. Okay, let's go. Liang Yu jumped onto Huahua's back. Uncle Yu and Fatty Zhu said to Zhang Yi, "Be careful." Then the two also jumped on Huahua's body. The three of them, and one beast glanced at Zhang Yi worriedly, and then fled away. In the middle of the battlefield, Zhao Honglian, Wei Dinghe, Crossing Cheyenne, and some members of the investigation team became the main force. After Yuan Kanggai mastered the telekinetic power, he could suspend in the sky and look down on everyone to fight. Therefore, all the ability users of the enhancement system, except Bailey Chanking, chose to retreat to the back to provide assistance and protection for the main attackers in front. But the functional aliens, such as Meng Xiao and Yi Zhikeng, left the battlefield without hesitation. Wu Di's eyes were full of hatred. He was surrounded by floating cannons, and the dazzling ball of light emitted a terrifying impact, shooting towards Yuan Kanggai like a torrential rain. At the same time, Crossing Cheyenne used his ability to bless everyone. Wei Dinghe's ice and snowstorm and Zhao Hong's flaming dragon were all trying their best to consume Yuan Kanggai and distract her attention. At this time, everyone understood one thing in their hearts. Zhang Yi is the key to defeating Yuan Kanggai, because only his attack can pose a threat to Yuan Kanggai. Therefore, even Wu Di, who has the worst attitude towards Zhang Yi on weekdays, has shown the professionalism of an elite investigation team at this moment, doing his best to create an output environment for Zhang Yi. Facing the attack of more than a dozen strangers, Yuan Kanggai felt restless. These offenses meant nothing to her, but she must always guard against Zhang Yi, who has the ability to kill with one blow. Once she has any defensive airstrikes and Zhang Yi's supernatural power hits her, she may be severely injured. Chapter 537 The Final Battle 3. Obviously they all end in death. Why are you still struggling? Forget it. I don't have the patience to continue playing around with you. Yuan Kanggai's indifferent voice came from high above. She didn't like the appearance of things that were out of her control. From the pupils of her eyes, a piercing white light burst out quickly. She hangs high above the sky, like a sun. The holy light sweeps in all directions. The power of Nirvana was pushed to the maximum by her. That power enough to destroy everything reminded everyone of the famous scene where Bian Junwu killed 10,000 plus zombies by himself. Bailey Chanking and the others turned pale, because they felt that the power of this blow was already at the level of Bian Junwu. Run away. Run farther away. Bailey Chanking held Qi Guangming with one hand and Wu Di with the other, and turned into an afterimage, and ran towards Zhang Yi. And Zhao Honglian and others also made the same action. They know that now they can only rely on Zhang Yi's dimensional gate to try to resist this power. Zhang Yi opened his right hand and opened the dimensional door to the maximum. A huge dimensional door like the Nanshan gate opened in front of him. Wei Dinghai applied his frost armor to the maximum, and the thick armor enveloped him like a Gundam. But when the extinguished light swept across the earth, his armor was shattered like confetti. Wei Dinghai subconsciously stretched out his right arm in front of him, and his arm was directly destroyed like a fake. At the last moment, he hid within the range of Zhang Yi's dimensional gate, only to save his life. The white light disappeared from the earth. Zhang Yi let out a long breath. His dimensional gate blocked Yuan Kangai's attack. After all, this kind of large-scale attack cannot concentrate all the power in one place like his divine power. Then it would be difficult to pose any threat to his dimension gate. However, with just this blow, almost all the aliens on the field were killed. Only the leaders of several forces and a few members of the investigation team are still alive. But there is no time for everyone to grieve, because right now, whether they themselves can survive, is a big problem. Desperation also began to pervade everyone's hearts. They have tried their best, but they did not cause the slightest damage to Yuan Kangai. On the contrary, they suffered heavy casualties. How to fight next? Wait to die. Is an alien at the Epsilon level really invincible? Wei Dinghai sealed the wound on his arm with ice, but fortunately he is not a melee type of alien. Even if he lost an arm, he can still fight. Yuan Kangai exuded a sacred and soft light, looking down at Zhang Yi and the others. Zhang Yi, you are very capable. But I have absorbed the abilities of 36 people, including Ban Junwu's ability. How should you deal with it? She stared at Zhang Yi with a smile on the corner of her mouth, and then she stretched out her index finger and pointed at Zhang Yi. I want your ability too. Zhang Yi stared at Yuan Kangai, his eyes filled with fear. He said to everyone in a deep voice, now, everyone has to work hard. Take out everything that is at the bottom of the box, otherwise we may all die here. Woody gritted his teeth and shouted, we don't need you to tell us. He still didn't say a word. That is, even if you work hard, can you really win? As a member of the investigation team, he didn't want to say such disheartening words, but he clearly thought so in his heart. Fight with all your might, and still have a chance, otherwise you will die. Zhang Yi said. Yuan Kangai's attack would not wait until Zhang Yi and the others had finished chatting. Soon, a new round of attack came again. This time, the attack came from underground. The ground under their feet exploded, and hundreds of thorny vines covered with white frost stabbed at everyone from the bottom of their feet. This is the ability of Damei, the priest of the snow worship cult. Originally, she was just an ordinary special ability user, who could breed thorns and vines from her body as a means of fighting. There was nothing remarkable about her when she died, and there was nothing left of her bones after being gnawed in the zombie battle just now. But her ability can become extremely powerful in Yuan Kangai's hands. This attack caught everyone off guard, and Zhang Yi decisively opened the space to shuttle and left the place. The others hurriedly tried their best to block the attack of the thorns, which were harder and sharper than steel, even if they fell into the rocks. Maybe it was Zhang Yi's words that inspired their fighting spirit, or maybe the morning soldiers must win and live to die. These all-powerful top aliens finally started to risk their lives. Woody gritted his teeth, and suddenly a surge of spiritual power surged out from his body, driving his hair high into the sky. In an instant, his black hair became whiter than snow, and the surging mental power engulfed his body, causing him to fly high into the sky. Seeing this scene, Bailey Changqing and Qi Guangming, as well as members of the investigation team who were hiding behind the building watching the battle in the distance, all showed unbearable expressions. Woody's floating cannon consumes mental power. Once this power is used excessively, it will consume his lifespan. At this time, Woody has already started to burn his mental power crazily regardless of the consequences. This approach allowed him to briefly touch the threshold of Epsilon. Woody's changes attracted Yuan Kangai's attention. She frowned. Unexpectedly a new trouble appeared. Ha 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 ha. Woody laughed wildly. He knew what this approach meant to him, but now, he had no other choice. Bian Junwu can sacrifice for the team, so can Woody. Die to me, you hateful bitch. Around Woody, countless balls of light eroded towards Yuan Kangai with a wave of his right hand. The power of this attack is completely different from the previous ones, at least several levels have been raised. And he raised his hands high, unexpectedly condensed a huge ball of spiritual light with a radius of nearly 1 meter, and then swung it fiercely towards Yuan Kang'ai. The huge floating cannon is extremely fast, and it contains extremely terrifying destructive power. The others were not idle either, and cooperated with Woody to attack Yuan Kang'ai from all directions. Especially Zhang Yi, who went around behind Yuan Kang'ai. Shenwei locked her, and started to activate. Yuan Kang'ai frowned, not daring to be slighted. She also felt the threat of death. Silence. The terrifying extinction light once again centered on her, sweeping in all directions. Zhang Yi and Woody also used their strongest blow one after the other. Terrible forces intertwined and collided in the air, showing colorful colors, and then quietly began to annihilate everything around them. After this fight, Yuan Kang'ai finally showed a look of exhaustion on his face. She can have countless kinds of supernatural powers, but the supernatural energy in her body can be exhausted. Facing a joint blow from two top aliens at the same time, even she couldn't be calm. However, after this blow, Woody's condition took a turn for the worse. His complexion has vicissitudes at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his eyes are a little dim. The next moment, he fell headfirst like a plane crashed. This blow drained everything he had. Bailey Changqing hurried over and caught him. On the contrary, it was Zhang Yi, who quickly stuffed supernatural food into his mouth while beating. He is not afraid of a war of attrition. Even if he casts divine power continuously, his abilities can be replenished quickly. Chapter 538 The Final Battle 4. Zhang Yi and Woody joined forces for the strongest blow, which finally made Yuan Kang'ai feel a little tired. However, the current situation is not optimistic. Because except for Zhang Yi, everyone else suffered injuries of varying severity. Woody has been completely abolished, and there is no way to fight anymore. A pool of blood gushed out from the corner of Xiao Hanglian's mouth. Even with the battle armor condensed in the furnace of purgatory, she couldn't bear the aftermath of the extinction power. As for Wei Dinghei, one arm was broken, and the whole person was almost useless. Only Zhang Yi and Bailey Changqing were able to stand on the field. But with the two of them, how could they defeat the nearly invincible Yuan Kang'ai? Despair, utter despair. The strength of a high-ranking alien is such a complete crush on a lower-ranking alien. If it wasn't for Bian Junwu's death, Bailey Changqing would have even wanted to win her over and become a member of the Jiangnan region. However, he can't do that, because that is a betrayal of brothers who live and die. Why do you struggle so hard? That will only increase the pain. It's better to let me kill it quietly, so that you can all get relief. Yuan Kang'ai's voice sounded like a god, and she could see that the crowd was no longer a threat to her. Even though Zhang Yi is a bit weird, his only threatening method, Shenwei, cannot break Yuan Kang'ai's silence. At this moment, Yuan Kang'ai enjoyed this powerful feeling very much. This feeling of being able to dominate and destroy everything is really great. Outside the battlefield, several members of the investigation team couldn't stand it any longer. Although their abilities are not suitable for fighting Yuan Kang'ai, they can't bear to see their teammates die tragically with their own eyes. Only Liang Yu and the others hid behind the boulder and looked at Zhang Yi in the field, but their hearts were full of trust in him. Liang Yu murmured, Zhang Yi, who is most afraid of death, how can he be a hero when he is not sure? He must have a way. Sure enough, at this moment, Zhang Yi suddenly spoke. He sighed softly and said to Bailey Changqing and the others, well, it seems that your limit has come to an end. Although what you have done is a little less than I imagined, it is almost enough. The tone of Zhang Yi's words was a bit loud, which made the people around feel astonished after hearing it. That's right, they admitted that Zhang Yi's divine power had a great restraint on Yuan Kang'ai. But in their impression, Zhang Yi's strength lies in defense, not attack. If it was one-on-one today, he might be killed by Yuan Kang'ai within 5 seconds. So they didn't understand why Zhang Yi's sudden attitude change occurred. Zhang Yi waved to the others, but his eyes were fixed on Yuan Kang'ai all the time, and he didn't leave for a moment. Get out of here. The next battlefield will be taken over by me. Things have developed to the present, and everything has developed as Zhang Yi thought at the beginning. And the meaning of these aliens coming is to help Zhang Yi consume Yuan Kang'ai's power as much as possible. Perhaps it can be said that from the very beginning, Zhang Yi did not expect them to defeat Yuan Kang. Bailey Changqing looked at Zhang Yi in astonishment. Zhang Yi, are you joking? Looks like. Zhang Yi asked calmly. Of course not. No one would seek death at such a time. They also don't think that Zhang Yi will be the kind of good person who is so great that he sacrifices himself to give others a chance. Now that Zhang Yi said so, they can only choose to believe now. Then leave it to you. Without hesitation, Zhao Hanglian and Wei Dinghe ran away decisively, dragging their seriously injured bodies. Crossing Xian glanced at Zhang Yi, gritted his teeth and said, Zhang Yi, our last hope rests on you. He gathered all his last abilities together, and then blessed them all on Zhang Yi. This made Zhang Yi feel that his body was stronger and faster, and even his 5 senses became extremely sharp. Yuan Kang did not stop the others from leaving. As long as she is willing, no one in Xianhe City can escape. She was just curious about Zhang Yi's attitude, and didn't know what this man wanted to do. Bailey Changqing sent away Wu Di, who was almost exhausted, but returned to the battlefield by himself. His injuries are not minor, but they are manageable, so he will not leave the battlefield. Zhang Yi didn't stop seeing this scene. Since Bailey Changqing is willing, let him fight together. But Zhang Yi didn't expect him to play much role. Bailey Changqing suddenly threw a pitch black pistol over. Zhang Yi recognized it at a glance. It was their captain Bian Junwu's gun. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. Gun? Bailey Changqing said, there are still about 20 rounds of origin bombs in it. The name Yuan moved Zhang Yi a little bit. It was a bullet specially used against aliens, and it could even pose a certain threat to Yuan Kang. Okay, I accept it. Zhang Yi looked up at Yuan Kang, narrowing his eyes slightly. Everything should come to an end, shouldn't it? The corners of Yuan Kang's mouth curled up slightly. She was suspended in midair. Her whole body was shrouded in divine light. Who gave you the confidence? Zhang Yi, you don't know anything about strength. Me, but I haven't done my best yet. Yuan Kang opened her arms, and the majestic abilities formed a violent storm around her. Now, I'm slowly getting used to so many abilities in my body. Don't worry, I'll kill you soon, and take away your power. With Yuan Kang as the center, even more terrifying storms emerged. Moreover, the ground under the feet of Zhang Yi and Bailey Changqing was even more broken, and countless gravels were suspended in the air. Bailey Changqing used his nimble speed to jump away, stepping on boulders one after another in the air, trying to attack Yuan Kang. Yuan Kang's eyes were full of ferocity, and the 5 fingers of his left hand pointed at him, and a huge force of thought directly swept him away. No matter how powerful the enhancement system ability user is, they can't use their own power when they are in the air. Zhang Yi ignored Bailey Changqing. When his feet started to tremble, his figure flickered in midair and appeared opposite Yuan Kang. The direction of the vector in the different space is not affected by the outside world. Therefore, as long as Zhang Yi controls the direction of the door, he can achieve any teleportation within a range of 300 meters, and even stagnate in the air. Yuan Kang waved his right hand, and a 1,000-meter-long black tornado hung upside down, stabbing Zhang Yi fiercely like a sword of Damocles. But Zhang Yi didn't even dodge. Standing on the ruins of a building, he also opened his right hand. The black tornado storm completely submerged into Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. The next moment, the second door suddenly opened on Yuan Kang's right side, and the tornado she released started attacking her in turn. Yuan Kang gave a look, and the huge tornado shattered. Is it the gate of the dimension? So can you catch this trick? Yuan Kang said coldly. The next moment, with Zhang Yi as the center, hundreds of spears transformed into hurricanes suddenly appeared in countless directions in all directions. He rushed to where he was in an instant. Chapter 539 The Final Battle 5. Boom. The hurricane swept through this space frantically, and the earth was already smashed to pieces. But Zhang Yi appeared from another place the next moment. He was safe and sound, and even his expression was equally indifferent. Seeing this scene, Bailey Changqing, Zhao Hanglian and others in the distance were all surprised. Zhao Hanglian was astonished, and couldn't help but whispered, so in the past, he never used his real strength in front of us. Maybe only Liang Yu and a few people know how terrifying Zhang Yi's life-saving ability is. The dimensional gate is already perverted enough, and now it has the ability to travel through space, which is enough to make him immune to almost all physical attacks. Seeing that Zhang Yi was safe and sound, Yuan Kang'ai had a flash of surprise in his eyes. But soon she sneered disdainfully. Are you just going to run away? Although Yuan Kang'ai hated Zhang Yi's abilities, he was not afraid. In the past time, they completed the ability intelligence collection of the aliens in Xianhei City. Regarding Zhang Yi's ability, they have analyzed it very early. The conclusion reached is that the defense is full, but the attack is not enough. Even now, Zhang Yi has the ability of Shenwei, but this skill consumes too much, and the forward swing is obvious. Unless it's a sneak attack, it's impossible to kill Yuan Kang'ai in a face-to-face battle. Yuan Kang'ai believed that he was invincible. Of course, Zhang Yi also thinks so. The sharpest spear versus the strongest shield, which one will win? The people watching the battle from a distance were extremely nervous, but they could only pray for Zhang Yi. If you have the ability, come and kill me. Zhang Yi sneered and made a provocative gesture towards Yuan Kang'ai, and what they got back was naturally a more violent attack. Zhang Yi's figure kept flickering in the air. With the ability to travel through space, his life-saving ability is really top-notch. Yuan Kang'ai can't lock him to attack, and ordinary physical attacks will be absorbed by the Gate of Dimension. Therefore, she can only expand her attack range, so that Zhang Yi cannot escape from her attack range. But what she didn't expect was that Zhang Yi showed new abilities at this time. Although the dimensional gate has a huge area and strong defense capabilities, its weakness is that the defense range is one way and cannot be moved. After obtaining this ability, Zhang Yi is also constantly improving it. Finally, let him open a more flexible defensive skill, Dimensional Shield. He can compress the double-dimensional gates to the size of a shield, and then manipulate it with both hands. Although the area is reduced, it is more flexible and convenient to defend against attacks from all over the body. Moreover, he doesn't need to free his hands to attack. Fighting against Heracea, his only effective means of attack is the pupil technique Shenwei. This battle reached the frontier of the snow worship cult, and the Dao was wiped out. Relying on the defensive ability with almost no dead ends, no matter what terrible attack Yuan Kang'ai unleashes, it will be absorbed by Zhang Yi with the dimensional shield, and then bounce back. Zhang Yi is not always in a passive state of being beaten. Once he finds the space in the original empty night, he will use Camu to attack. Yuan Kang'ai has always been afraid of the power of the gods, and the attack should not be too wanton. Whenever Zhang Yi uses Shenwei, she must also use Nirvana to fight back. With the ruins of the snow worship cult as a center, a radius of 10 kilometers has become a battlefield for the two of them. Spherical phantom clusters of light appeared in midair, and everything within the range would be swallowed up. Logically speaking, Zhang Yi's current combat effectiveness is far inferior to Yuan Kang'ai's, and he simply cannot continue to fight for such a long time. However, firstly, he is blessed with the power of the Xingqian Legion, and secondly, he has a large amount of supernatural food stored in his different space. While fighting, he will eat to restore his physical strength and abilities. If this is not the case, he will completely collapse if he uses up to 5 shots of divine power. And because of this, he felt the horror of Yuan Kang'ai. After fighting for so long, her abilities are still as terrifying as Wan Yang. Zhang Yi also had a profound experience of the power of LV5. This is still based on the lack of proficiency in the original empty night combat experience. As for the others, they only had to watch the battle and shout 666. Even Bailey Changqing gave up joining the battle at the end. From his point of view, he could only become a burden in a battle of this level in the past, and he was not at all high enough to participate in it. Because of this, everyone's attitude towards Zhang Yi has changed from being unfavorable at the beginning to being shocked now. This defensive power is too scary. Fortunately, we didn't fight Zhang Yi all the way back then. Otherwise, we must be the ones who got wiped out after the fight. Both Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghe had the same thought in their hearts. But, even if it lasts like this, it's not a problem. Meng Xiao's face was serious. For aliens of different levels, the gap in the amount of abilities in their bodies is also extremely huge. Especially after reaching LV5, it is impossible to understand with the eyes of ordinary strangers. Zhang Yi's attack has no effect on her. Even if she can delay her time, she can't win. Once Yuan Khan guy gets tired, he can completely leave him and attack us first. Everyone's heart sank. What Meng Xiao said was indeed reasonable. Zhang Yi's defense is strong, so Yuan Khan guy will not be able to kill him for a while. However, if Yuan Khan guy wanted to leave, Zhang Yi couldn't stay. With telekinesis, her flying speed is not much worse than teleportation. She can completely abandon Zhang Yi and kill others first. We have no choice but to trust Zhang Yi. Bailey Changqing folded her arms and said in a deep voice, Yuan Khan guy really wants to kill us. We are determined not to be able to escape from an Epsilon. They had even heard of the first Epsilon in Huaguo, the mysterious powerhouse in Shengjing region. He can even kill people thousands of miles away. Everyone knew that Bailey Changqing was right. Under the absolute power gap, all small thoughts are futile. Unless Zhang Yi can win Yuan Khan guy, at least she is unable to chase after the consumption. Otherwise it is meaningless for them to run. On the battlefield, Zhang Yi and Yuan Khan guy had been fighting for more than 10 minutes. An anxious look gradually appeared in Yuan Khan guy's eyes. She has used dozens of methods to deal with Zhang Yi. But Zhang Yi's dimensional shield and space shuttle are simply bugs. You can't hit it, you can't catch it. This made Yuan Khan guy, who thought he was close to a god, very angry at this time. Her offense has also become more terrifying. Silence. Divine power. It's another confrontation between big moves. Colorful colors appeared in the space again. A building was affected. A spherical opening was melted directly from the waist and then collapsed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 The Final Battle 6. Yuan Khan guy couldn't stop attacking Zhang Yi for a long time, and his mood became more and more anxious. At this time, she missed Zhang Yixin more and more when she was by her side. She just needs to be a symbol of snow cult and worship God all day long. Zhang Yixin, if you are still here, you must know how to solve this trouble, right? She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Suddenly, a light flashed in her mind. Because of my impatience before, I was entangled by Zhang Yi. Think about it, what would Zhang Yixin do at this time? Yuan Khan Yi's fuse was so heartbroken that he chose to give up Zhang Yi and instead flew to the distance, planning to trouble Uncle Yu and the other three, attack it and save it. Only then can Zhang Yi show his flaws. Are you smarter? Zhang Yi's eyes flashed, but there was a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth. Yuan Khan guy only found out at this time that Uncle Yu and the others had long since disappeared. All of this was arranged by Zhang Yi. At this moment, Uncle Yu and the others didn't know where they went. Yuan Khan guy, who had been fighting with Zhang Yi, didn't realize this at all. Only Xiao Hanglian and the others were still nearby. Seeing Yuan Khan guy rushing towards them, their faces changed greatly in fright. Yuan Khan guy glanced at Zhang Yi resentfully. Zhang Yi looked indifferent. Anyway, it is impossible for him to put himself in danger. In order to save these people now, Yuan Khan guy can kill them if he wants to. However, if Yuan Khan guy wanted to kill Bailey Changqing, Xiao Hanglian and others, he would leave the back to Zhang Yi. On the contrary, this is a great opportunity for Zhang Yi to win. What a hateful fellow. The calm and composed expression on Yuan Khan guy's face disappeared. Even though she has the power to push everything horizontally, there is nothing she can do with this bug level defense. At this moment, Zhang Yi is like a Zuanwu who is good at fighting. His whole body is covered with a hard tortoise shell, which you can't break through no matter what. But once you reveal your flaws, there will be a snake hidden in the turtle shell, which will bite you hard. Yuan Khan guy tried to calm himself down. She lacked combat experience, but as the actual combat progressed, she gradually learned a lot. She judged the characteristics of Zhang Yi's defensive ability. First, the scope is limited. Space shuttle is limited within the range of 300 meters. The dimensional shield is limited to protecting the space around the body. So if you want to defeat him, you must use a large-scale range attack, and it is powerful enough. Yuan Khan guy has been using this method, but it has no good effect. There was a flash of inspiration in Yuan Kangai's mind, and suddenly he had a new method. Her eyes were gradually dyed red, her hair was windless and automatic, with her as the center. A monstrous flame suddenly burst out, turning into hundreds of fire dragons, and attacking Zhang Yi. High temperature is unavoidable, but Zhang Yi is wearing a combat uniform. That kind of specially made combat uniform can withstand the high temperature of thousands of degrees in a short period of time. Zhang Yi used the dimensional shield to block the attack in front of him. But the next moment, those hundreds of huge fire dragons bypassed him and then crashed into the ground. Okay. Zhang Yi frowned. It wasn't an attack directly on him, so what was the purpose? The huge fire dragon rushed into the ground, and suddenly thick white smoke filled the air. Now there are ice and snowflakes everywhere, which were instantly melted into thick water vapor, and at the same time, blocked Zhang Yi's sight. Play sneak attack with me? A sense of vigilance arose in Zhang Yi's heart, and soon he seemed to be in a foggy valley, unable to see anything. The surrounding temperature is getting higher and higher. Zhang Yi wants to escape from this area, but the huge surrounding space has been affected by the high temperature, and white mist is everywhere. Zhang Yi couldn't even tell the direction. Crash! The sound of water came to Zhang Yi's ears. A huge lake has appeared on the ground. Before Zhang Yi's eyes, a very strange scene appeared. Drops of water quickly lifted into the air and came around Zhang Yi, filling the entire space. Not good. Zhang Yi suddenly realized that something was wrong. Even if he used the space shuttle at this time, he could not escape the range covered by these water droplets. There are more and more water droplets floating in the sky, turning into a long river in the sky with a white coverage. High above the sky, Yuan Kangai let out a breath towards the bottom. It was a white smoke. After it was spit out from her mouth, it soon turned into a huge ice and snowstorm. And that long river began to freeze in an instant, and in less than 2 seconds, it all condensed into one piece. The drop in temperature causes the mist to turn into ice particles and fall. And as the fog dissipated, an unimaginable spectacle appeared on the battlefield. A huge cube of ice stood in the center of the battlefield, with a length of thousands of meters. There was a trace of fatigue in Yuan Kangai's eyes. Even with her current power, casting such a wide range of abilities would consume a lot of energy. But there was a happy smile on the corner of her mouth. Even if you can dodge it well, you can't dodge such a large-scale attack. However, as soon as her words fell, a door was opened above the huge block of ice. Zhang Yi came out from the door. He let out a long breath, and then looked up into the sky with a smile on his face. This combination technique is very thoughtful, but it's a pity that it's useless to me. There is no suitable environment for survival in the different space. It is a pure blank area, without even air. However, entering it for a short period of time does not kill the person. Therefore, it can be used as a temporary space to avoid attack means. Zhang Yi used this ability to avoid Yuan Kangai's skills. Yuan Kangai froze for a moment, her eyes frantically shaking like an undercurrent. It was so easy for her to think of this method, but she didn't expect Zhang Yi to be defeated by this method, and her heart collapsed a little. Zhang Yi, I don't believe I can't kill you. This devout believer of the gods, the high cold leader of the snow worship sect, looked as excited as an ordinary 20-year-old fairy. But just when she was about to make another move, a strong sense of discomfort suddenly rose from her mind, and her vision began to blur. Yuan Kangai frowned and rubbed his forehead with his hands, not taking this feeling seriously. But this subtle change was captured by Zhang Yi. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth, and then he hooked his finger at Yuan Kangai with a frenzied expression. Come on. Come and kill me, if you have the ability. Oh yes, by the way, Zheng Yixin's chest wound was caused by me. As soon as these words came out, Yuan Kangai's expression became a little ferocious. Okay, then I'll let you go down and be buried with him. When Zhang Yi spoke, he didn't stop eating. The power consumption is too fast, and the supplement of nutrition cannot be stopped. Let us wait and see. Chapter 541 Ability Toxin. Zhang Yi and Yuan Kangai fought together again. The inability to attack Zhang Yi for a long time made Yuan Kangai feel more and more restless. In fact, it's not that her strength is not strong enough, but her actual combat experience is too weak. Coupled with Zhang Yi's stimulation, she was determined to kill Zhang Yi here. But further down, Yuan Kangai's body felt more obvious discomfort. The world was spinning in my mind, and I felt a strong nausea-like motion sickness. And the scene in front of him began to become blurred. This feeling is even more obvious when she is outputting crazily. She suddenly realized that this feeling was not caused by her emotions, nor was she suffering from a sudden illness. After thinking of this, she suddenly stopped in midair, covered her forehead with one hand, and gritted her teeth in pain, and asked Zhang Yi, what have you done to me? After seeing Yuan Kangai's reaction, the smile on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth gradually became wild. Sure enough, has it already started? No, I can't laugh yet. I want to lead her into the abyss step by step. Zhang Yi said mockingly, it seems that you still can't control your own power. Perhaps I guess it's the ghosts of those dead who you absorbed the supernatural power, and their ghosts are also entangled in your body, which makes you suffer so much. Yuan Kangai stared at Zhang Yi viciously. At this time her body was in pain. But Zhang Yi's words pierced her heart and made her feel uneasy. After all, in order to achieve her goal of becoming stronger, she used too many methods, killing all the strangers who had used the ice soul. Among them, even many believers who had been loyal to her, as well as Zhang Yixin, who was the most important to her. Shut up, what do you know about me? Yuan Kangai gritted his teeth, endured the pain in his body, and launched a fierce attack on Zhang Yi. The earth is broken, the dark clouds are rolling back, the wind is howling, the flames are boiling, and the ice and snow are surging. She has countless powerful abilities at her fingertips. But for Zhang Yi, all of this could not cause substantial harm at all. Zhang Yi is like a little tumbler. Even under an extremely powerful attack, he can't be knocked down in the midst of the storm. The only weakness in the standoff between him and Yuan Kangai was that the supernatural energy in his body was far less than that of Yuan Kangai. But firstly, he got the blessing of Xingshan's Xingshan Legion ability. Secondly, his different space has stored a large amount of supernatural food, which is enough for him to consume energy again and again. But what is the point of this battle? Even his strongest divine power can't kill Yuan Kangai, so what if he continues to fight? The change in Yuan Kangai's body gave Zhang Yi the answer. He secretly planned many plans, and finally it worked. This is his second plan for Yuan Kangai, supernatural poison. Plan is based on the premise that Yuan Kangai and Zhang Yixin can perfectly control the group of corpses and let them abolish their martial arts. In exchange for a short-term peace in Xianhe City, Zhang Yi will find a way to use the power of the Jiangnan region to get rid of the Snow Worship sect. If this plan fails, Plan 2 will naturally start. And the key to the second plan is the Ban Junwu with supernatural toxins in his body. As I said before, there are countless mutations in this world, and not all of these mutations are positive, but also negative. There is a flaw in Ban Junwu's ability, that is, every time he releases his skills, he will lose his light and suffer from incurable injuries as the price. Variation is at the genetic level, so it cannot be cured with modern medicine. And Yuan Kangai absorbed the ability of the ice apparition host, so he would naturally get its negative effects. Regarding this point, Zhang Yi did not speculate by himself. In the letter Li Jian wrote to him, one thing was mentioned. Li Jian met a goddess priest in the snow worship cult. Her ability is to use breath to control ice and snow. But this ability has a negative effect, which is to damage her lungs. Therefore, once she uses her ability, she will often cough. Later, Li Jian saw Yuan Kangai strangle her to death with his own eyes. One day, after she performed a supernatural power in public and performed miracles for the congregation, she also coughed a few times, and the movement was exactly the same as that of the goddess father back then. This detail was carefully described to Zhang Yi by Li Jian. Therefore, Zhang Yi judged that when Yuan Kangai absorbed the supernatural power, he would also absorb the mutated negative energy. This is the second option. A carefully arranged strategy with the frontier army as the core. Zhang Yi was the only one in Xianhe City who knew about the deficiencies in the military capabilities of the frontier army, while other forces had not received this information. So Yuan Kangai didn't know what the price of using Nirvana was. When she obtained this ability powerful enough to destroy everything in sight, she felt extremely joyful in her heart, and she couldn't wait to use this power to obliterate everyone. As an alien of the Epsilon level, the stronger the power she uses, the greater the backlash caused by the side effects. For example, Byun Junwoo, when he completely released his abilities, he turned into a flash of fireworks, quickly consuming his life. And what Zhang Yi needs to do is to fight Yuan Kangai for a long time, forcing her to use her abilities non-stop. The people in Qianhe City fought with Yuan Kangai in a wheel battle. The previous investigation team and dozens of aliens from several major forces have already consumed Yuan Kangai's wave. After they were defeated, Zhang Yi made up for it. The smile on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth became more and more intense. In this way, as long as Yuan Kangai is killed, not only can the crisis in Qianhe City be completely resolved, and everyone else has been destroyed, no one will be able to snatch Yuan Kangai's origin from him. That is the origin of the alien at the level of Epsilon. Once Zhang Yi absorbs her abilities, it is equivalent to absorbing the abilities of dozens of different people at the same time. At that time, maybe Zhang Yi can also use this to advance to the Epsilon level. But these, he will not tell Yuan Kangai. Tell her, she may not fight. If she ran away, Zhang Yi would have nothing to do with her. So, he purposely used words to provoke Yuan Kangai. I know you hate this world and want to destroy everyone. But speaking of it, you are not innocent. If your parents hadn't set up a cult, defrauded many congregants of their money, and let them go bankrupt, you wouldn't have ended up like that. Yuan Kangai's pupils suddenly constricted. That period of history was something she had never been willing to face, the biggest shadow in her heart. Zhang Yi's words made her recall those fragments of fragmented memories. How her parents died in a plane crash. At her parents' funeral, an angry congregation rushed over and toppled her parents' coffins. Among the congregation, who had nowhere to vent their anger, someone also pushed her down viciously. Then, there was endless brutal torture. Zheng Yixin rushed over like a wounded beast to save her, but was trampled to the ground with his head held down. No matter how much he begged, his eyes were bloodshot, and those people did not stop what they did to her. For a whole day and night, the pain had penetrated deep into her bone marrow, making her doubt that she would not be able to survive. What? Yuan Kangai suddenly hugged his head tightly and let out a desperate cry. A majestic force swept away, centered on her like a storm. Chapter 540 Takan 039 TB cured. Yuan Kangai's vision had begun to blur at this time. She looked at Zhang Yi, but she couldn't see his outline clearly. Moreover, her head hurt more and more, and a strong sense of crisis enveloped her heart. Zhang Yi, what did you do to me? Answer me. Zhang Yi looked at Yuan Kangai from a distance, and at this time, he was not in a hurry. The backlash of this ability cannot be cured. As long as Yuan Kangai starts to attack, it will only develop into a worse situation. Guess if I tell you or not? Zhang Yi said with a smile. It is impossible for him to give Yuan Kangai a chance to crack his method. Although right now, the layout he has painstakingly laid out is about to be effective. But 100 miles is 190. He can't be careless at the last moment. Yuan Kangai stared at Zhang Yi viciously. She had already decided in her heart that Zhang Yi must have used some kind of ability on her at some point, causing her body to go wrong. Opinionated, Yuan Kangai scolded coldly. Suddenly, a vast white light began to emerge from her body, enveloping her entire body. This is her ability, Blessing, which can heal all diseases and injuries of the human body. But this time, as soon as Yuan Kangai's ability was activated, she felt that the situation was unexpected. Not only did the discomfort in her body not disappear, but as she increased the output of her powers, her vision became more blurred, and her headache became more severe. Cough, cough, cough. There was a sudden pain in her chest, and she couldn't help coughing. Take advantage of his illness to kill him. Zhang Yi will not miss such a good opportunity. He will not give Yuan Kangai any room to breathe. Only the dead can be trusted. Divine power. Camu activated again, and pierced towards Yuan Kangai. Yuan Kangai sensed a huge crisis, and at the same time, used Nirvana to resist. She blocked this blow again, but her body deteriorated more and more. Cough, cough, cough. In the distance, everyone who had almost lost their combat power was watching the battle. Seeing Yuan Kangai suddenly having a physical problem and coughing violently, everyone felt incredible. because from the beginning to the end, they did not see what method Zhang Yi used. And having known Zhang Yi for so long, they have a better understanding of Zhang Yi's abilities. He is a stranger in the space system, and he doesn't have the ability to poison people. Besides, it is almost impossible to poison an Epsilon level alien during a battle. When Bailey Changking saw Yuan Khan guy coughing, he suddenly understood everything. It's the captain's ability. Not only him, but all members of the investigation team understood this. The aliens in Xianhei City didn't understand Bayan Junwoo's supernatural flaws, but they did. Meng Xiaoyu murmured. After she absorbed the captain's ability, she also got the side effect of the captain's ability. Is this Zhang Yi's intention, or a coincidence? She looked at Bailey Changking and the others with a bit of astonishment in her eyes. Is it a coincidence? It doesn't look like it. But if Zhang Yi had calculated it at the beginning, then when he asked Bayan Junwoo to use the Ice Soul, he had actually calculated Bayan Junwoo. Woody, who was lying in the sleeping bag, cursed weakly. You bastard. He actually plotted against us. No, he did nothing wrong. Bailey Changking said calmly. At that time, doing that was the only way to save us. I think the captain also guessed Zhang Yi's plan for him, but the captain could only do that. He stared at the two people on the battlefield and actually developed a kind of admiration for Zhang Yi. However, it's amazing that this guy was able to set up such a big chess game. Even we have become pawns in his hands. Although it would be a little uncomfortable to be used by others, Bailey Changking admires Zhang Yi's scheming and skill. Woody scolded. Awesome fart. This guy, I must, cough cough cough. He was already close to running out of oil and the lamp was dry, and he was so excited that he almost lost his breath. Meng Xiao comforted. Okay, the things here have nothing to do with us for the time being, you should rest first. Seeing that Yuan Khan guy finally had a problem, everyone was shocked. They feel that they see the hope of life. Only when Zhang Yi defeats Yuan Khan guy can they survive. Everyone knows this very well. On Zhang Yi's side, while eating to replenish his physical strength, he fought Yuan Khan guy at a long distance. At this time, Yuan Khan guy had a serious problem with his body. His vision was blurred, and his body also had strong discomfort. Zhang Yi no longer uses Shenwei. This ability consumes a lot for him. Even if it can be supplemented by eating, it cannot be abused. After all, he still needs to maintain a strong enough combat power until the end of the battle. He knew very well that once Yuan Khan guy was really defeated, the group of guys around would never miss such delicious food. After all, this is the origin of an alien of the Epsilon level. Therefore, Zhang Yi's offensive method was changed to the origin bomb. The pistol used by Bayan Junwoo is larger than normal pistols and has a longer barrel. After the pitch black bullets are fired from the barrel, they carry a destructive force. Against ordinary people or objects, its power is no different from ordinary bullets. But once it encounters a stranger, its destructive power is unimaginable. Even if it is in Qi Guangming's hands, it will have a certain impact on Yuan Khan guy, let alone it is in Zhang Yi's hands at this time. Zhang Yi held Bayan Junwoo's gun and used his ability to jump in space to avoid Yuan Khan guy's attacks. At the same time, they took advantage of her physical pain and inability to concentrate and shot her. The power of each origin bomb cannot be underestimated. Yuan Khan guy could have used telekinetic power to move at high speed and avoid the attack of the origin bomb. But at first, she didn't want to avoid it. Because once she starts to actively avoid Zhang Yi's attack, it means that she has entered the stage of defense. This is absolutely unacceptable to her who claims to be the apostle of God. So her choice is to connect the origin bomb with force of thought. But in this way, her power consumption speed is greatly accelerated. And the side effects of the Frontier Army's martial abilities are even more intense. At the back, Yuan Khan guy finally realized the crux of the problem. But she was already stuck. If she doesn't use the ability, she will be killed by Zhang Yi quickly. Not to mention the surroundings. There are many strangers waiting for her to fall. Could it be that I'm going to lose? For the first time, such a thought appeared in Yuan Khan guy's heart. She didn't want to admit it at first. After all, she and Zheng Yixin had planned for so long for today. She has obtained the abilities of dozens of aliens, many of whom are top aliens like Bayan Junwoo. She thought she was invincible, but looking at the entire Xianhei city, no one could resist her blow. However, the appearance of Zhang Yi, an outlier, pushed her into a desperate situation. In terms of attack power alone, Zhang Yi could not have threatened her. Although the power of Shenwei is powerful, its attack range is limited. As long as she wants to leave, Zhang Yi will definitely not be able to stop her. But Zhang Yi's defensive power was full. So much so that even as an alien of the Epsilon level, Yuan Kangai could not break Zhang Yi's defense. Chapter 543. It's not that Yuan Kangai is not strong enough. If it were a foreigner with rich combat experience who possessed this power, Zhang Yi might not be able to achieve his goal so easily. Of course, in order to maintain the current situation, it is not easy for Zhang Yi. If he hadn't possessed the blessing of crossing Shine Legion and continued to eat supernatural food to replenish his energy, he would never have been able to confront Yuan Kangai until now. Epsilon represents the highest level of aliens in human beings at present, and the amount of alien energy in Yuan Kangai's body is so much that Zhang Yi finds it troublesome. Fortunately, he can take in energy from the outside. Yuan Kangai, what's wrong with you? You've been fighting for so long. Are you going to surrender? While launching an attack on Yuan Kangai, Zhang Yi taunted her without giving her any room to breathe. As long as you surrender to me and abolish your abilities, I can consider leaving your life behind. He spoke seductively, trying to disturb Yuan Kangai's mind. Yuan Kangai's vision was blurred, but her fighting power was still extremely strong. With dozens of abilities, even though her eyes cannot see, she can still perceive things around her through strengthening her physique. Zhang Yi responded with a huge ice pick, but he was swallowed by him with the Gate of Dimension. Yuan Kangai has almost lost his way to deal with Zhang Yi. At first, she planned to fight a war of attrition with Zhang Yi. After all, her combat effectiveness is definitely superior to Zhang Yi's. And as a higher level alien, the extraordinary energy stored in her body is unknown how many times that of Zhang Yi. But she did not expect that Zhang Yi's different space stored so many supernatural food. It's almost like a low-level player brought 10,000 bottles of red medicine and blue medicine to fight the world boss. Although the attack power is not high enough, he can kill you with energy. If only that's the case. The most deadly point was Yuan Kangai's own physical problems. At this time, she already understood that the reason why her body changed suddenly was because of the ice soul she gave to Zhang Yi and others. Her wishful thinking was well done. Since Bing Pio can help people awaken their abilities and even stimulate their potential, the leaders of several forces will definitely keep it, either for their own use or for talented newcomers to use. When those people die, their abilities will return to Yuan Kangai's body. But she didn't expect that someone would use the Ice Apparel as a trick to intentionally give it to an ability owner with a huge negative effect. It was too late to wake up at this time, and the negative effect exploded, causing serious damage to her body. It can't even be alleviated with the ability of the healing system. After all, the mutation is at the genetic level and is irreversible. Yuan Kangai's expression gradually distorted, and she asked Zhang Yi, when did you attack me? Tell me, I want to know the answer. The corners of Zhang Yi's mouth curled up slightly. Go to hell and ask Hades. After finishing speaking, he fired an origin bullet at Yuan Kangai's head. Humph. Yuan Kangai waved his right hand lightly, and a huge ice wall appeared in front of him, blocking the origin bomb. But after using the ability, her head hurt like a needle. Yuan Kangai covered his head in pain. His body was shaking in the air. No. I can't continue spending time with him. She finally realized that fighting like this was not the way to go. The man in front of her perfectly restrained her ability. She had to go away and take time to work out the physical issues. After she fully adapts to the new power, she will come back and kill everyone here. Thinking of this, Yuan Kangai endured the severe pain, suddenly turned around and ran away in the opposite direction to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi was not surprised by this. He has already predicted all the choices that Yuan Kangai might make. No matter what today, Yuan Kangai must die in his hands. Jesus came and couldn't stay, he said it. Don't you claim to be a god? What are you running for? While replenishing energy calmly, Zhang Yi chased after Yuan Kangai. In order to prevent Yuan Kangai from suddenly shooting back with his carbine, Zhang Yi hangs not too far away, not too close to her. Because today's Yuan Khan guy has absorbed many alien abilities, including powerful strengthening aliens, the melee ability must be very strong. Zhang Yi will not take any risks. As long as the injury dragged into Yuan Khan guy's body broke out, she would die herself. Zhang Yi is a qualified hunter. He has plenty of patience. The flying speed of Yuan Khan guy was very fast, and after gaining the power of telekinesis, she quickly swept across the sky and turned into a white light and shadow. But no matter how fast her speed is, it can't be faster than Zhang Yi, who has the ability to jump in space. And when Yuan Khan guy fled to the distance, Bailey Chanking and people from several major forces who were watching the battle became excited. Yuan Khan escaped at night. That also means that Zhang Yi won the battle. Bailey Chanking stared at Yuan Khan guy in the sky. His eyes were lowered, and there was a flash of solemnity. An Epsilon level alien who was seriously injured and fled. If he could take her origin, he would undoubtedly be able to make his strength even stronger. Not only him, everyone at the scene thought of this matter. Everyone's eyes became hot. In the last days, one's own strength is the most real. They have seen the power of Yuan Khan guy. An alien of the Epsilon level is a super powerful gap that completely crushes the inferior aliens. Who can't be that kind of existence? At this time, Zhang Yi was not nearby. He hung Yuan Khan guy far away like a patient fisherman. Among the ruins far away, Wei Dinghe glanced at his crippled arm, gritted his teeth, and made a decisive decision. Even if Xianhe City is coming to an end this time, my strength will be greatly reduced after losing an arm, and I will not be able to keep my position. It's better to fight. His eyes were icy blue, and a storm condensed in his pupils. The next moment, his whole body merged into the vast white snow on the ground. On the way of Yuan Khan guy's escape, a huge vortex suddenly formed from the ground, and then quickly turned into a sharp spear, and pierced her in the sky. Although Yuan Khan guy's vision was completely blurred, and she almost lost the ability to see things, her perception was still there. Faced with this attack, she gritted her teeth, and punched the ground. The giant gun formed by the condensed ice and snow seemed to hit an iron wall, and the tip of the gun collapsed quickly. Then an invisible force quickly fell towards it. Only a sound of boom was heard, and the entire storm lance was shattered into countless pieces of ice and snow. Wei Dinghe's body was slammed into the ground, and the frost armor covering his body shattered like glass. He sank deeply into the ground, and after a while, streams of blood spread out from the ground, staining the surrounding snow layer red. Chapter 544. Wei Dinghe wanted to take advantage of Yuan Khan guy's serious injury to sneak attack and seize her origin. But I didn't expect that Yuan Khan guy in this state was still terrifyingly strong. With just one move, he was instantly killed by Yuan Khan guy. This scene also awakened the crowd watching the excitement around. Even the injured Yuan Khan guy is not something they can contend with. They are not Zhang Yi. They don't have such a huge logistical supply, and they don't even have that kind of space system ability with defense against heaven. Yuan Khan guy couldn't deal with Zhang Yi, but killing them was as easy as killing ants. Yuan Khan guy instantly killed Wei Dinghe and quickly fled towards the distance. Zhang Yi chased after him unhurriedly. He glanced at the people hiding in the ruins and said with a smile, "Everyone, Yuan Khan guy is seriously injured at this time. If you want to obtain her origin, please do so." Zhang Yi's tone was light, but in everyone's ears, there was a sense of banter. He seemed to be laughing at Wei Dinghe's overthinking. An injured Epsilon, that's not what ordinary aliens are qualified to think about. Of course, although the others didn't make a move, they more or less had such thoughts. Everyone was silent, knowing that they were not qualified to compete with Zhang Yi. After Zhang Yi glanced at them once, he smiled lightly, and the next moment he opened the space to jump and chase in the direction where Yuan Khan guy was escaping. He was in no hurry, because right now, he has plenty of time. Yuan Khan guy couldn't kill him, and he couldn't kill Yuan Khan guy either. But they're all human, they're all tired, they all need rest and food. Yuan Khan guy became blind at this time, in a state of not sleeping or eating. No matter how powerful she was, she couldn't stand it. And Zhang Yi has many supplies on him. He even has a military stimulant that can forcefully boost his spirits. Next, he competed with Yuan Khan guy in endurance. Zhang Yi and Yuan Khan guy disappeared in this battlefield one after the other. The others breathed a sigh of relief just now and carefully poked their heads out from the ruins of the bunker. Bailey Chanking stared at Zhang Yi's direction and couldn't help saying, in the end, he turned out to be the biggest winner. If Zhang Yi really absorbed Yuan Kangai's origin, then he might even be directly promoted to the level of Epsilon. Then, Zhang Yi will also become the alien with the highest level of strength in the entire Jiangnan region. At that time, they can only look up to its existence. Bailey Chanking scratched his head. The captain said he would let him join the team at the beginning, but now that he really comes, I'm afraid he will be our leader. Demolition expert Jijikan came over, and he said seriously to Bailey Chanking, but why do I now feel that everything is designed by him? All of us became his pawns, used by him. Bailey Chanking looked at Jijikan and smiled helplessly. Using it? There is no way. Who told others to be superior? He looks more open-minded, even if he is used by others, as long as the result is good and their original goal is achieved. He will not hate Zhang Yi, but will thank Zhang Yi for everything he has done. Because without Zhang Yi, they would not have discovered the secrets of the snow worship cult, not to mention that the task would not be completed and would leave a huge disaster for the entire Jiangnan region, no, even the entire Hua kingdom. It's just a pity for the captain. Maybe he could have lived longer. A look of sadness flashed across Yijikan's eyes. Bian Junwu is their spiritual pillar, and his death is a huge blow to every team member. Bailey Chanking remained silent, and everyone fell into silence. Can Zhang Yi be blamed for this matter? Without Zhang Yi, Bian Junwu might be able to live a little longer. But everyone knew that the hidden wound in his body could not be suppressed for a long time. Without Zhang Yi, he too would die soon. And dying on the battlefield this time, and blooming the last glory before dying, it may not be a bad thing for him. On the other side, Yuan Kangai is on the run. It's not that she can't beat Zhang Yi, but she really can't beat Zhang Yi. At this time, she was blind in both eyes, and the backlash of her abilities was serious, so she urgently needed to find a place to recuperate. She has dozens of abilities, including a variety of healing abilities. She believes that, if she gives herself enough time, she will be able to find a way to heal herself. However, behind her, there was a pair of eyes staring at her in the dark, not giving her the slightest chance to breathe. Although he couldn't see it, Yuan Kangai knew that Zhang Yi was always there. He was like a vulture, waiting for her death. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry at all. His patience was outrageous. He kept an appropriate distance all the time, just silently watching Yuan Kangai. Once Yuan Kangai wanted to stop and rest, he would force her to fight with an origin bomb. If Yuan Kangai was extremely angry and came to him desperately, he would run away without looking back. And every time after this kind of consumption, Yuan Kangai's hidden injury broke out more and more seriously. As for Zhang Yi, he found a place, took out food from a different space and ate silently. It's like a Falcon operation. Zhang Yi injected himself with a stimulant. This kind of military stimulant can not only improve his physical fitness, but also stimulate his nerves. It doesn't matter if he doesn't sleep for 3 days and nights. He can afford it. This grand hunt, once he waited to the end, he would get a huge reward. A copy of the original power of an Epsilon level alien. That is the essence of the original power of dozens of aliens. Yuan Kangai staggered and continued to flee in the snowstorm. She lost her direction. Her eyes turned completely grey and white, and she couldn't see anything for a long time. In the haze, she could only escape by instinct. On the second day, relying on her instinct, she found a department store buried deep in the snow. But just as Yuan Kangai was about to go in and quickly find some food to replenish his strength, a rocket shot right here, burning up those supplies. Yaran Yuan Kang had long been numb, but she was still a bit devastated when faced with this situation after a day of hunger. She turned her head, her grey eyes looking into the distance. Zhang Yi stood on a low mountain, carrying a rocket launcher in his hand. Looking at it with a smile, a plume of blue smoke came out of the bazooka, and that smell was called despair. There was no expression on Yuan Kangai's face. She raised her hand to sweep away, and the raging blizzard swept away, as if it was going to destroy the entire mountain. But no matter how raging the storm was, he couldn't get close to Zhang Yi. In front of him, 2 huge dimensional gates formed a triangle to protect him. Invincible. Aren't you giving up yet? Zhang Yi asked lightly. Everyone around you is dead. Your parents are dead, Zhang Yi is dead, and tens of thousands of worshippers of Zhao have been killed by you. If you are alive, is there anyone who loves you? Even if you get everything, you are alone. Everyone died because of you. Don't you have a trace of guilt in your heart? Actually, the most damned person is you. Chapter 545 The End of One Evil. Yuan Kangai silently listened to Zhang Yi's words. Her face was expressionless, and she didn't answer. But after creating a storm that swept across the earth, she turned around and continued to flee far away. Zhang Yi didn't take it seriously and chased after him slowly. Yuan Kangai, who lost her direction, was like a headless fly. She was running completely by instinct. On the third day, she came to the edge of Xianhe City. At this moment, she was already extremely weak. Her small face the size of a palm was whiter than snow. For 3 days, she hadn't eaten anything. Whenever she finds something, it will be destroyed by Zhang Yi. She couldn't stop to rest, because she knew that Zhang Yi's gun was aimed at her head secretly. Despair, unparalleled despair. This feeling is like being cut by a very dull knife. It will slowly pierce your skin first, then cut your flesh and bones little by little. If Yuan Kangai met a stronger alien than her and was directly killed by the opponent, she might not be so painful. However, what she encountered was a piece of dogskin plaster. This made her extremely unwilling, but helpless. Zhang Yi, it would be great if you were still alive. She staggered to a snow mountain and walked slowly up the mountain. Zhang Yi was 1,000 meters behind her, slowly following her. Compared with Yuan Kangai, his state is very full. He had given himself 2 shots of stimulants, so his nerves were more active than usual. He is confident enough that he can wait until Yuan Kangai can't survive. Looking at Yuan Kangai's state, he knew that he was not far away from the final victory. Yuan Kangai walked to the snow-capped mountain, feeling the cold wind blowing across her cheeks. Although there was a tinge of coldness, it didn't make her feel uncomfortable. However, she was too sleepy. Even the severe cold and wind and snow could not stop her drowsiness. Countless times she couldn't even lift her eyelids. But whenever she was really about to fall asleep, a pitch black bullet would hit her from a distance and aim at her head. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Yuan Kangai muttered to himself. At this time, she was desperate and pitiful. Her slap-sized face was full of grievances. It seems like a girl next door who has been bullied and wants to seek protection. God, am I not your most loyal believer? Please save me. Yuan Kangai put his palms together and prayed to the God in her heart. But no voice answered her. Why? Why didn't God give me directions? Did I do something wrong? But everything I do is to create a world that is pure and free from filth. Zhang Yi, what should I do? Can you tell me? At this moment, how could she still look like that cold and holy leader of the snow worship sect? She's just a helpless girl. In a trance, many faces appeared in front of her eyes. Her parents smiled and extended their palms to her. Let's go with mom and dad. Let's go to heaven. The next moment, Zhang Yi told her seriously. Wake up, wake up. Suddenly, Yuan Kangai's face changed again. It was a gentle woman, looking at her kindly. Zhao Yi, are you okay? When seeing this face, Yuan Kangai's dry eyes suddenly shed 2 lines of clear tears. Sister Chen Rao. Suddenly a lullaby rang in her ears. Sleep, sleep, dear baby. Sleep, sleep, dear princess. Yuan Kangai couldn't hold on any longer. She was sleepy and hungry. Her body had become an empty shell. A lullaby that made her body tremble. Give up, give up. Everyone dear to you is dead. Everyone who loved you died because of you. What's the point of you being alive? Dead and you can meet them. Yuan Kangai's body staggered. She struggled to walk to a dead tree and slowly fell against it. Zhang Yi. She read Zhang Yatsen's name. I'm hungry. Yuan Kangai murmured and then slowly closed his eyes. In the distance, Zhang Yi saw Yuan Kangai fell asleep, silently raised the gun in his hand and fired at Yuan Kangai. The bullet stopped a meter away from Yuan Kangai, shook twice and landed on the snow. Not dead yet? Zhang Yi said lightly. He stared at Yuan Kangai cautiously, but did not dare to approach rashly. Wounded beasts are the most dangerous. If Yuan Kang was really about to die, then her counterattack before she died must be the most violent. He was in no hurry. The origin bomb in Zhang Yi's hand has been used up. He took out an anti-material sniper rifle from a different space and aimed at Yuan Kang's body. Only target the body, not the head. Because this thing is too powerful, if it hits the head, it will definitely be destroyed directly. That would affect Zhang Yi's ability to absorb her origin. After a few minutes, Zhang Yi tried to fire the first shot. Failed. Yuan Kang blocked the attack by relying on the mental barrier. Zhang Yi silently put away his gun and continued to spy in the dark. At this time, Yuan Kang had lost consciousness and her defense was entirely based on instinct. Zhang Yi didn't dare to get close, so he shot and attacked every once in a while. In this way, time passed day and night. Yuan Kang, the first superhuman in Xianhe City, was finally exhausted by Zhang Yi. Large caliber sniper bullets pierced her body. No, to be exact, it tore her body apart. This scene looked a little cruel. A young girl is torn in two. But in the face of such a powerful and terrifying alien, Zhang Yi had no choice but to do so. No sympathy can be left on the battlefield. Even the dead must be treated with care. And such an ending, to her, is considered inhumane. Because she is the biggest black hand behind the turmoil of the corpse tide in Xianhe City. Because of her, at least 1 million people in Xianhe City died in the mouths of zombies. All of this is the price she should pay for disregarding human life. Seeing the last scene, Zhang Yi finally confirmed that Yuan Kang was dead. His eyes were already bloodshot. He himself hadn't closed his eyes for 4 days and 3 nights. If it wasn't for the medicine, he would fall to the ground like Yuan Kang now, and he was even worse than Yuan Kang. Zhang Yi stood up, resisting the excitement in his heart, and slowly walked towards Yuan Kang. Those who walk 100 miles are half 90, and the last step to success is the farthest. He doesn't want any accidents to happen. Zhang Yi carefully observed the surrounding area and could confirm that no one was chasing him. Even if someone comes over, he is not afraid. Although his spirit is approaching its limit, his abilities are still abundant. No matter who comes over, his divine power can annihilate them. After Ban Junwu and Yuan Kang died, no one in Xianhe City was his opponent. Next, as long as he absorbs Yuan Kang's origin, he will become a more powerful and unparalleled alien. I'm not really interested in how powerful I get. But if having power is the only way to protect yourself and survive, I will pursue stronger power. Zhang Yi walked up to Yuan Kang step by step, and he was very careful during the whole process. It was only 2 kilometers away, and he walked for more than 10 minutes. When he came to the broken girl, the peaceful head was under the tree. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and put his right hand on Yuan Kang's forehead. The next moment, an indescribably huge force poured into his whole body along his palm. It was like a rushing river roaring in his body. Zhang Yi opened his eyes, and his right eye burst out with a dazzling light, even lighting up the surrounding space. At the same time, in the dark pupil of his left eye, there was also a hint of dark and deep brilliance. Chapter 546 Void. I don't know how long it took for Zhang Yi to absorb the remaining powers of Yuan Kang. He felt his strength become stronger. No matter from which level, it ushered in an epic level of enhancement. Even for the simplest dimension gate, the threshold of its defense power has been greatly enhanced. And his grasp of the power of space has also become more delicate. It seems that in the future, more powerful abilities can be developed. However, there was one thing Zhang Yi didn't know. Yuan Kang, as an acquired Epsilon alien who was promoted the day after tomorrow, also has flaws in his abilities. Because all her abilities are obtained from plunder, and she doesn't really have her own power. In addition, not long after she was promoted, her origin was not yet stable, so she experienced a big battle, which seriously damaged her origin. So to be precise, Zhang Yi only absorbed a small part of Yuan Kang's original power. But only this part of the power has far exceeded the power of any Delta level alien in Xianhe City. And what Zhang Yi has to do next is to completely make this power his own. Zhang Yi closed his eyes, carefully feeling the changes brought about by this power. He stood in the wind and snow, and opened his eyes after a long time. Then he slowly opened his palm. A black electric light condensed in his palm. At first it was like a flickering spark, and then it grew rapidly, turning into a mass of dark matter like flame and lightning. Crackling, the distorted sound continued. Zhang Yi controlled this force, and soon it became solidified in Zhang Yi's palm. In the end, it turned into a pitch black unstable spear. Even Zhang Yi felt a little unable to grasp this power. He quickly raised his hand, and threw the spear into the distance. The black spear pierced through the void, fell to the mountainside in the distance, and sank into it silently. But the next moment, a mass of dark matter erupted from that direction, turning into a huge black ball with a radius of thousands of meters. When the black ball disappeared, it also left a huge circular hole on the mountainside of the short mountain. It is a huge round pit with a radius of hundreds of meters. The surface is smooth, as if it was directly wiped away by something. The power of the void, Zhang Yi murmured. When he got this power, he understood the function of this ability like an instinct. The void can swallow everything. It is an upgraded version of Shenwei. Its lethality is even more terrifying, and its power is even more terrifying. If it is used with double doors, then, is there anyone in this world that I can't kill? Zhang Yi looked at his right hand. He even feels that this power can make him surpass the concept of human beings, and has the power to control the life and death of all things. People suddenly gain extremely powerful power, and their hearts will expand infinitely. However, this kind of complacency was quickly suppressed by Zhang Yi. There are too many strong people in this world. I can't be too self-righteous. Otherwise, complacency will lead me to my demise. Harasora is the best example. Thinking of the terrifying power erupted by Bian Junwu before his death, and the scene of Yuan Kangai manipulating dozens of supernatural powers to wantonly bombard and kill aliens in Xianhei City, Zhang Yi felt that he had to calm down. What's more, Bian Junwu mentioned that there are other Epsilon level aliens in this world. The one from the Shengjing region can even take someone's life thousands of miles away. This world is still full of dangers, and I have to be careful, Zhang Yi said. But at the very least, even if I meet a more powerful alien now, there is no problem with self-protection. Zhang Yi clenched his fists. His eyes were full of confidence. Even in the face of such a monster-level superpower in the Jiangnan region, he would not be afraid. It's not that he is arrogant, but that the Jiangnan region will definitely try to win him over now. Then, even if he calculated Bian Junwu and used his ability to dig a hole for Yuan Kangai, there was a way to make a major event into a minor matter. Zhang Yi turned on the communicator and communicated with Uncle Yu. Hello, Uncle Yu. I'm Zhang Yi. Yuan Kangai has been killed by me. We are safe. On the other end, Uncle Yu seemed to let out a long breath. After a few seconds, he said, that's good. That's really great. Where are you now? How are the forces in Xianhei City and the investigation team doing? During the 4 days and 3 nights of chasing, Zhang Yi put all his energy on Yuan Kangai and never contacted his family. Now that all the dust has settled, there are still some things that need to be finished in Xianhei City. Uncle Yu said, Wei Dinghe is dead, and his deputy, Chen Jingwen, is still alive. He brought the rest of the people back to Chaoyu base. It's similar to the other companies. People from the other investigation team went to the Qingpu base. Their people were seriously injured, especially that Wudi, who looked like he was dying. They were recuperating at the Qingpu base. As for us, we are all at home waiting for your return. Zhang Yi nodded. Okay, let's talk about it. When I go back, the other forces can no longer afford to turn the tide. After this battle, the entire Xianhei city was almost destroyed. Among the 5 major forces, except for them, the combat members of other forces are almost dead, leaving only a few aliens. From now on, they will not pose any threat to Zhang Yi. As for the investigation team, they are what Zhang Yi cares most about. Zhang Yi took out the snowmobile from the different space, turned on the automatic driving, and returned to the shelter all the way. Everyone at home is waiting for his return. When seeing Zhang Yi, everyone's faces could not hide their excitement. In this crisis in Xianhei City, they almost lost their homes, and even their lives. In the end, relying on Zhang Yi's strength, all this was saved. Zhang Yi, brother Zhang Yi, big brother, boss. Everyone wanted to come and hug Zhang Yi. but Zhang Yi refused everyone's hugs and cheers. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "I want to take a break now. Let's talk about everything. When I wake up, a stimulant is like coffee, which boosts the spirit, but it will burst out fatigue in the follow-up." After returning home, Zhang Yi's mental strength also reached its limit. He passed the crowd and went back to his room. His room was still warm and gorgeous. The huge Horston's bed was neatly covered with white velvet quilts. The lights are warm yellow. Snowflakes are flying outside the window. Everything is so quiet and peaceful. Zhang Yi took off his clothes, locked the door behind his back, and threw himself on the bed. Now, he just wants to sleep well. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547 Fanway, Yuan Kangai 4000 words. July 2046 in the Western calendar. In early summer, the temperature in Shanghai City became hot and dry. The monsoon blowing from the east coast cannot drive away the high temperature of the subtropical climate, but it brings humid air. Summer in the south always comes earlier than in the north. Even the cicadas on the banyan tree are more diligent than those in the north, climbing to the top of the tree early, making a disturbing cry of "I got it, I got it." This voice lingered outside the courtyard of the theological church, impatient and slightly impatient. It looked like a group of people were arguing about something in a hurry. In a Japanese-style courtyard, a girl in a priestess costume was sitting under the eaves, with her hands resting quietly on her side, looking curiously at a green cicada on the treetop outside the courtyard. As the saint of the Shanghai branch of the theological religion, Yuan Kangai has been trained as the successor of the church since she was a child. Her parents claimed that she possessed some kind of extraordinary ability. Therefore, every member who joins the church will be baptized and blessed by her. When she was very young, she only thought this kind of ceremony was very interesting. Although she didn't understand why those believers looked at her so piously, she didn't hate the feeling of being respected and loved. However, as she grew older, she began to realize that she did not have any special abilities. The so-called blessing ceremony is just a way to comfort believers, and even a tool for her parents to make money. Gradually, Yuan Kangai no longer liked this kind of thing. She began to be unable to bear the eyes of the believers looking at her. It's like the eyes of a drowning swimmer grabbing at straws. As she grew older, she felt rebellious in her heart. However, she couldn't resist her parents' request. Perhaps from the bottom of her heart, she also enjoys the feeling of being respected and loved. But once people know that she is just an ordinary girl, not some saint with extraordinary abilities, she will lose all the identity and status she has now, as well as the superior life. Therefore, Yuan Kangai in adolescence has always been lost in this kind of comfort and self-blame. She kicked the clogs on her feet, and the white socks wrapped her feet tightly. Shinrikyo originated from neon, so she always wears the clothes of Neon Miko. The red and white clothing has a conspicuous and weird taste. At least in Shanghai City, she rarely went out wearing this outfit. The church behind me was very noisy. She didn't know what they were arguing about, because this group of people always did some strange things. So she came to the courtyard to get some fresh air. But when he raised his head, layers of white clouds in the sky moved slowly like mountain peaks, pressing towards the top of his head. The air is a little dull. Yuan Kangai felt discomfort in his chest, as if something was about to happen. She put her right hand on her chest and could feel her heart beating faster. Did something bad happen? Yuan Kangai said to himself. At this moment, the wooden door behind him was pushed open with a crash. Yuan Kangai turned his head suddenly and saw the great elder of the theological sect, that Uncle Tan who had always cared for her since she was a child, looked at her seriously. "Saint, I have something to inform you. Just 2 hours ago, the plane that the leader and his wife were flying to Kyoto had an air crash over the East China Sea." Boom. It was as if something exploded in Yuan Kangai's mind, leaving her mind blank. As for what the elder said later, she couldn't hear clearly. All I saw was that the great elder's face was more serious and cold than usual, and even his funny bald head was like a cold stone. In the summer of 2046, Yuan Khan Gai's life trajectory changed dramatically. From heaven to hell. The funeral of Yuan Suan and my wife Kamiko was held a month later. None of their bodies were ever found. However, with their deaths, Theosophy also ushered in a huge crisis. In the past, Yuan Suan and his wife, who were the leader and high priest, declared to the congregants that, as long as they believed in Theosophy, they could obtain happiness and avoid disasters. Countless congregants are addicted to the fantasies they weave. There are downcasts who are frustrated in life, patients with stubborn diseases, and family members who seek medical treatment for their wives and children. For the illusory promise, they donated all their property to the theological religion, and even cheated their relatives and friends of their money, and donated it to the two. When Yuan Suan and his wife died, their dreams were instantly shattered. Many people woke up and realized that they had been deceived. At their funeral, Yuan Khan Gai was dressed in black and knelt before the coffin. No one came to express their condolences, but those angry congregants ran over and insulted their whole family angrily. Those once friendly and gentle faces have now become extremely distorted and terrifying. Only her childhood sweetheart Zhang Yi, wearing a black suit, stood firmly in front of her. However, Zhang Yi's strength alone is too weak. Hundreds of angry congregants initially only insulted the Hera Khan Gai family, but soon, the emotion turned violent. They angrily smashed Yuan Khan Gai's home and took away everything they could. Some people even had nowhere to vent their anger, rushed over and kicked over the spiritual seats of Yuan Suan and his wife. Yuan Khan Gai watched all this in horror. She cried and begged them not to do this. Please, you can take whatever you want, but leave the picture of my parents, please. Seeing Yuan Khan Gai pleading, those believers felt the pleasure of revenge. Someone slapped her across the face. You damn liar, your whole family deserves to die. Even if you die 100 times, it won't make up for your sins. Yuan Khan Yeban's face was puffed up, but he protected the photo of his parents and hugged it tightly in his arms. Zhang Yi stood in front of her and begged in a humble tone, I is innocent. If you have any grievances, you can vent it on me. Let her go. She is still a child. Naturally, no one would refuse such a request. What's more, the anger in their hearts has been burning ragingly, and there must be a place to vent it. As a result, Zhang Yi was quickly knocked down by a group of people, fists and feet rained down on her body. Yuan Khan Gai hugged the photo of her parents and looked at the scene in front of her in horror. She was trembling. Her body was like sifting chaff. Among the crowd, someone suddenly reached out to her. Father pays off, you little liar. Since you are alive, you have to atone for everything your parents have done. Yuan Khan Gai's brain went blank. She only felt her body cool down quickly. Stab, stab. She was pushed violently to the floor. Countless hands stretched out towards her body. She had never felt like this before. The excessive stimulation made her mentally numb, and she even lost her sense of body. All she knew was that there were countless ants crawling on every part of her body. She couldn't even open her mouth to call for help. At this moment, she is like a doll, being played with by countless people. The bald head that she used to like to touch most also climbed onto her body. Yuan Khan Gai once thought that she was dead, but she survived after all. But what about surviving? She lost everything she owned. During the 2 years of recuperation in the nursing home, she wanted to end her life countless times. It was Zhang Yi who was always by her side and told her that everything was not her fault and that she was the best girl in the world. But for Yuan Khan Gai, this kind of warmth is not enough to make up for the huge hole in his heart. Hey, Zhang Yi, don't you think this world is too filthy? Yuan Khan Gai sat in a wheelchair looking at the snowy scenery outside the window and said to Zhang Yi indifferently, if there are gods, why not cleanse the world? Zhang Yi walked over and knelt down in front of her slowly. His eyes were full of pity and sincerity, but he couldn't answer Yuan Khan Gai's question. Yuan Khan Gai smiled weakly. That's right, there are no gods in this world. Everything is just what mortals do on their own. My parents are liars who play with people's hearts. The believers of Theosophy are greedy and ignorant believers, and even I am a cowardly and incompetent doll at the mercy of others. She suddenly turned pale. There shouldn't be such things as humans in this world. Zhang Yi took her cold hand and comforted her silently. It's just that the heavy snow was getting heavier and heavier, and it never stopped. The snowstorm came without warning. The blizzard continued, as if it would never end, and the world finally became chaotic, with desperate cries everywhere. But Yuan Kangai didn't feel scared. She was even a little happy. Because the gods have finally heard her voice and are coming to purify this ugly world. In the last days, the ugly side of human nature is exposed to the fullest. She has seen children abandon their parents for food, husbands and wives living under the same roof, and putting knives under their pillows every day. Yuan Kangai smiled happily. She thought she was going to die in this washed world. The end of the world is coming, and there is chaos everywhere, and she and Zhang Yi, who are weak, also get separated. She should have died. But just when she was about to die of freezing and starving, a special voice suddenly sounded in her heart. She awakened the ability called Death Return. It's like a person has an extra arm and naturally understands its function. A gleam of light finally appeared in Yuan Kangyeken's eyes. Isn't this the guidance given to her by the gods? This must be her mission as an apostle of God. To bless others, to claim the power of the unfaithful, and finally grow into a god, to punish all the filth in the world. She thought about everything that happened in the morning hall that day. If she was strong enough back then, nothing would have happened. People, if you want to change the world, you must have a force strong enough to subvert everything. Yuan Kang survived the night. Her life is no longer confused. In order to accomplish the goals God has directed her to, she can sacrifice everything. The first person she killed was a nun named Chen Rao. In the cold end of the world, Chen Rao adopted many orphans and victims in St. John's Cathedral. Provide them with food and medicine, and comfort them to survive with hope in the last days. Chen Rao is like a beacon in the apocalypse, bringing warmth to many people, including Yuan Kangai, who almost died at one point. Just because she possesses a special ability, gift of Jehovah. Anyone touched by her hands will be healed of any physical pain, and any spiritual uneasiness will be healed. Yuan Kangai was beside her, feeling the long-lost warmth. Chen Rao is a true believer, with a devout heart and the kindness of the Virgin. Harasora needs her strength. That is the best ability, to summon foolish people in the last days. So she took advantage of Chen Rao's unpreparedness, tricked her into using Bing Po, and then killed her with a sharp kitchen knife. Everything is for the will of the gods, and everything can be sacrificed. Sister Chen Rao, you will forgive me, right? She covered her cheeks with blood-stained hands, and 2 lines of muddy tears flowed from her fingers. Chen Rao's death made many people feel sad and uneasy, but soon Yuan Kangai appeared, showing that he had the same ability as Chen Rao. As a result, people soon forgot about Chen Rao. They were so cold and so hungry that they could only see what was in front of them, so they quickly knelt down at Yuan Kangai's feet. The embryonic form of snow worship cult began to appear from this moment. At first, Yuan Kangai was not willing to accept male believers. Because of that incident, she rejected any man from the bottom of her heart. She thinks men are dirty pigs who only act on desire. Tell her not to mention touching, and not even willing to look at it. The way any man looked at her reminded her of that night of pain that seemed to never end. However, when Zhang Yi found her, everything changed subtly. When Zhang Yi found Yuan Kangai, he was in a panic like a wild dog that had lost its home. But when he saw Yuan Kangai, the joy in his eyes was like the brightest starlight. Aye, it's great to see you're fine. But what Yuan Kangai returned to him was only indifferent eyes. You go. She coldly rejected him. It seems that, in order to implement the belief in her heart, she does not allow any loosening in her heart. She will instinctively reject any personal thing that might change it. Zhang Yi asked in horror, why? Is there something I did wrong that made you hate me? I know, after the heavy snow came, it was my fault for losing you. But please forgive me. My life would be meaningless without you. Yuan Kangai frowned. In order to let this man who would shake her heart leave, she said, I hate all men in this world. So, you'd better stay away from me. The farther the better. Zhang Yi's heart almost collapsed. He smiled dryly. In the past, you were in Neheng, and I was in Qianhai. Thousands of kilometers away, I sent you messages every day. At that time, I felt that you were beside me. But now you are in front of my eyes. But I feel As if you are in the sky. So, how far is far? Once the two hearts are separated, it is the ends of the earth. Yuan Kanggai didn't answer him, but left coldly. But the next day, Zhang Yi found him again. His body was covered with donated blood, and he was weak, as if he was about to die. But he looked at Yuan Kanggai with a smile on his lips. You hate men, but I don't anymore. So I will never hurt you. Now, can I stay by your side? Chapter 548 has become stronger. Zhang Yi slept for 2 days. When he woke up, he still felt dizzy and his back hurt. This is also inevitable. After all, after such a long battle, his body was extremely overdrawn. He is not a strengthened alien who is good at physical fitness, and physical fatigue will naturally occur. But at this time, his heart was unprecedentedly relaxed and carefree. The conspiracy of snow worship cult was shattered. And after he absorbed the remaining power of Yuan Kanggai, his strength rose to an unprecedented level. Although it may be a little worse than the amazing power displayed by Yuan Kanggai, it has at least reached the level of Bian Junwu. What's the standard for the Epsilon level? I'm probably close to this level now. In terms of destructive power, forget it. No matter what, there is nothing in Xianhe City that can threaten me. Zhang Yi smiled lightly, took out a beef cheeseburger and a glass of coke from the different space, and ate it in big gulps. The feeling of fullness in his stomach made him satisfied. Then Zhang Yi changed into a set of home clothes, opened the door and walked out. As soon as the door opened, Zhang Yi lowered his head and saw Hua squatting at the door, looking up at him. Meow. There are complex emotions in its eyes. Worry and joy coexist. It seemed that he was afraid that Zhang Yi would not wake up. But it's no wonder. Not only it, but other people in the shelter are also very worried about Zhang Yi's situation. After all, Zhang Yi left everyone this time to face a formidable opponent alone. Zhang Yi clapped his hands with a smile. Hua jumped into his arms and then rubbed against his arms with a hilu. After confirming that Zhang Yi was safe and sound, Hua squinted her eyes with a sweet smile on her face. Zhang Yi stroked Hua's head and walked towards the living room step by step. In the living room, Zhao Ke, Yang Mi and Zhao Heimei were sitting on the sofa and chatting. Most of the words were regrets about the current situation in Xianhe City and worries about Zhang Yi's health. The former is because after this battle in Xianhe City, most of the remaining survivors died. The latter is easy to understand. Zhang Yi walked down the spiral staircase, and when the women downstairs saw Zhang Yi, their faces showed joyful expressions. Zhao Ke and Yang Mi hurried over and hugged him from left to right. Zhang Yi, you finally woke up. You slept for 2 days and 2 nights all at once, which scared us to death. How is it now? Is there any discomfort in your body? Let me help you with a detailed physical examination. Zhao Ke dragged Zhang Yi to the infirmary to check him up. Zhang Yi said with a faint smile, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired. I'm fine after 2 days of rest. Zhang Yi came to the living room and sat down on the sofa. While stroking the cat, he asked a few people about the recent situation in Xianhe City. Zhao Ke laughed and said, let Xingxin report this to you properly. As the network security consultant in the shelter, Yang Xingxin is also responsible for monitoring the networks of other forces. She has the most information about the intelligence of various forces in Xianhe City. Zhang Yi nodded, then call everyone over. Soon, knowing that Zhang Yi woke up, other people also came here one after another. The first thing everyone cares about is Zhang Yi's physical condition. After all, as soon as he came back, he fell asleep without saying a word and locked himself in the room to prevent others from disturbing him. Looking at everyone's worried expressions, Zhang Yi couldn't help feeling warm in his heart. I'm fine, very fine, he said with a smile. Hearing what Zhang Yi said, everyone was relieved a lot. And Liang Yu heard a hint of hidden meaning in Zhang Yi's words. She couldn't help asking, has Yuan Kanggai been killed by you? Zhang Yi rolled his eyes and thought for a while, then shook his head. It can't be counted as being killed by me. She died because she exhausted her mental and physical strength. Bian Junwu's side effects erupted, coupled with the 4 days and 3 nights of chasing and fighting, exhausted all of Yuan Kangai's energy. In desperation, she died a miserable death. After confirming Yuan Kangai's death from Zhang Yi's mouth, everyone let out a sigh of relief. After all, the leader of the snow worship cult who hid so deeply has really killed too many people. There may be as many as 1,000,000 survivors in Shanghai City who died because of her. After all, without her nurturing, such terrible things as corpse tide would not have appeared. Even now, when Liang Yu thought of the scene of the battle that day, she would always feel an extremely profound sense of powerlessness deep in her heart. The original sky hangs high above the sky, and when you raise your hand, there is a terrifying scene of heaven and earth collapsing. It has gone beyond her understanding of aliens. Fortunately, Zhang Yi killed her in the end. But how did you kill her? Liang Yu couldn't help asking. They knew that Zhang Yi was very powerful, but there was still a clear gap between Zhang Yi's strength and that of an Epsilon level alien like Yuan Kang guy. So there must be some kind of secret in it. Zhang Yi looked at everyone in the living room. He picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip of tea, then slowly explained, strictly speaking, what really killed her was not my ability. It was her own ability. She has absorbed too many people's abilities, including some side effects of abilities. The more she devours, the more toxins are precipitated. When her energy is stronger, the outbreak of the supernatural toxin will be more violent. That's how I was able to defeat her in the end. Zhang Yi didn't say clearly that he planned to use Bian Junwu's ability to kill Yuan Kang guy. After all, Bian Junwu is a capable general in the Jiangnan region. If the things about him designed by him spread out, it may cause unnecessary trouble. Everyone nodded after hearing this, and they couldn't help sighing while suddenly realizing. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, who would have imagined that an existence that was extremely powerful and whose ability was close to that of a god would die because of his own ability in the end? Then, her origin has been absorbed by you, right? Liang Yu looked at Zhang Yi with fiery eyes and said the question she wanted to ask the most. Yuan Kang Gai's dead, but Zhang Yi is still alive. Then Zhang Yi absorbed Yuan Kang Gai's power as a matter of course. When the others heard the words, they suddenly realized, and all looked at Zhang Yi. There was joy and envy in everyone's eyes. The power of Yuan Kang Gai is well known to them. So how powerful should Zhang Yi, who has devoured Yuan Kang Gai's origin, be at this time? Brother Zhang Yi, you are super strong now, aren't you? Great, aren't you invincible? Let's see who dares to interfere with our life in the future. Ha ha ha. Boss is too powerful. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows, smiled at the corner of his mouth, and nodded slowly under the expectant eyes of everyone. That's true. I'm a little bit stronger now. He gestured with his fingers. It's just a little bit. Chapter 549 Game. Zhang Yi didn't know what went wrong. After he got Yuan Kang Gai's origin, he didn't become as powerful as Yuan Kang Gai showed. Perhaps it was because her promotion time was too short and her foundation was unstable. It may also be because her power was plundered, and with her death, the original source dissipated quickly. Therefore, Zhang Yi only intercepted part of her origin. Coupled with the fact that the transformation of power will inevitably consume some energy, it is impossible for him to become the Epsilon who can destroy the world overnight. But that part of his origin has already greatly improved him. There was joy in the shelter. Everyone feels that Zhang Yi has become stronger, and they will be safer. But there is still a worry in Zhang Yi's heart. That is the investigation team sent by the Jiangnan region. They could more or less feel that Bian Junwu's death was related to Zhang Yi. And after the situation in Shanghai City is resolved this time, they will definitely report to the senior management about Zhang Yi when they return to Blizzard City. This is not good news for Zhang Yi. In the past, his displayed strength was not very conspicuous, and the Jiangnan region didn't care much about him. But this time, he killed Yuan Kang Gai, and after thinking about it with his toes, he understood that he absorbed Yuan Kang Gai's origin. So, will Jiangnan region ignore an existence of this level? At that time, the Jiangnan region will definitely send people over to recruit Zhang Yi. If you go, you may have to deal with crises everywhere like Bian Junwu, walking on the edge of danger. If you don't go, you will offend the Jiangnan region. If the high-level leaders of the Jiangnan region are narrow-minded, based on the idea of can't be used by me, nor can it be used by others, they may even attack Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi didn't dare to gamble on this possibility. He must control the situation within his acceptable range as soon as possible. After thinking about it, he decided to have a showdown with the investigation team. Use them to achieve your goals. So Zhang Yi talked with everyone for a while, and then drove away from the shelter alone, and went to King Poo base. When he went, he contacted both Crossing Cheyenne and Bailey Changking. Crossing Cheyenne naturally has no opinion. Moreover, his attitude towards Zhang Yi was extraordinarily enthusiastic, even flattering. Zhang Yi was not surprised by this. Today's Cheyenne City, to put it bluntly, is Zhang Yi's territory. The former 5 major forces existed in name only, the snow worship cult was destroyed, and the combat effectiveness of the 3 major bases was almost completely lost. And Zhang Yi, who possesses outstanding strength, has become the undisputed king of Cheyenne City. Even Bailey Changking was very gentle when talking to Zhang Yi. Some of the words in the words meant to win, and even implicitly expressed that the 2 parties could work together in the future. After all, they are all in the Jiangnan region, so I always want to visit Blizzard City in the future. Once the captain dies, we also need fresh blood, Bailey Changking said with a smile. But after Zhang Yi finished listening, the corners of his mouth raised coldly. Your captain sacrificed, so you should add another captain. The face of Bailey Changking on the other end of the phone changed slightly, but he could only smile awkwardly. Okay, let's talk again, when you come over. Well, that's it. Zhang Yi hung up the phone in a cold tone. On the investigation team's side, Bailey Changking frowned deeply, with a look of heavy worry on his face. The death of Bianjun would cause the strength of their team to plummet. Originally, he hoped that Zhang Yi would join their team, to make up part of their strength. After all, Zhang Yi is very smart, and he was strong enough in the Battle of Cheyenne City. In addition, he has absorbed Yuan Kangai's origin. If he can join their team, maybe he can keep their status as an elite team. In Blizzard City, all means of living need to be divided according to contribution. Only by maintaining the status of the elite squad can the livelihood of each of their members be guaranteed. However, judging from the tone of Zhang Yi's call, he made no secret of his ambition. If he wants to come, he must be the captain of the investigation team. A newcomer, he has been thinking about the captain's position since he first arrived, and his ability is still very strong, which naturally aroused Bailey Chanking's concern. After all, according to the order of the investigation team, after Ban Junwoo died, he was the most likely person to take over as captain. This kid has a lot of ambition. Bailey Changking sighed, and even hesitated in his heart whether to let Zhang Yi join their team or not. But if Zhang Yi doesn't come, how can Ban Junwoo make up for the loss? As the alien closest to the Epsilon level, Ban Junwoo is one of the top combat powers in Blizzard City. Such a character is also at the captain level in other ace teams. How can it be so easy to find? Bailey Changking was a little upset. He came to the room where the players were. At this time, after a few days of recuperation, Woody's physical condition has improved a lot, but his hair has been dyed silvery white, and he cannot return to his original condition. The others had their own injuries. They were not seriously injured when they were hit by the aftermath of the battle against Yuan Kangai. Bailey Changking walked into the room. Her face was not very good looking. When everyone saw this, they asked why. Bailey Changking thought for a while, and said what Zhang Yi said. He means that, if he wants to join our investigation team, he will be the captain. After Bailey Changking finished speaking, he could already see the complex expressions on the faces of the team members. Some were angry, angrily scolding Zhang Yi for his ambition. Some were silent, as if they believed that Zhang Yi was qualified to compete for the captain's seat. After all, everyone knows that he has swallowed Yuan Kangai's origin, so he doesn't know how strong his current strength will be. Bailey Changking spread out her hands and looked like she was paying attention to customers. Of course, I think it's right for Zhang Yi to have such an idea. Everyone hopes to climb to a higher position. What's more, he is also the biggest contributor to this Cheyenne City operation. If he wants to be the captain, I don't think there will be a big problem in terms of strength. However, after all, he has no experience in cooperating with us. If he joins our team, it will take time to adjust. Being a captain is not all about strength. He took Ban Junwoo as an example. For example, in our side team, he convinced us both in ability and personality. But this Zhang Yi, we still know too little about him. As soon as Bailey Changking finished speaking, Woody on the hospital bed couldn't bear it anymore. He said excitedly, "What kind of guy is Zhang Yi? Even if he wants to join our team, why should a newcomer be the captain as soon as he comes? If he comes, I won't wait. Kang Sheng also folded his arms, frowned and said, did he tell you that? It's too crazy. Qi Guangming said directly, in my heart, the only person who is qualified to take over the position of captain is Uncle Bailey. No matter how good Zhang Yi is, he must obey the rules when he comes. Yi Jikan frowned and said nothing. Meng Xiao looked at the people in the room, but did not express his opinion. They knew that Bailey Changqing would definitely want to take over the position of captain, but they didn't have much opinion on this either. After all, Bailey Changqing has always been the vice captain in the team, and his strength and character are worthy of everyone's respect. However, they also hope that Zhang Yi can join the team to supplement their combat power. Bailey Changqing smiled and waved his hand. Who will be the captain still has to be decided by the top management. It doesn't matter whether I become the captain or not. The important thing is that the team can have better development in the future. Zhang Yi will come over to talk to us later, I think. Let's see his attitude first. Chapter 550 Domineering. When Zhang Yi came to Qingpu base, he was immediately warmly welcomed by Crossing Shan. He brought dozens of people to welcome Zhang Yi, including his favorite magic dog Lel and his goddaughter. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows when he saw the battle and asked with a smile, are so many people coming to greet me? I'm really flattered. Crossing Shan was stunned for a moment and then realized that Zhang Yi had taken precautions against him. He couldn't help touching the back of his head and said with a laugh, it's been so many years, your cautious character really hasn't changed at all. But don't worry, I don't have the courage to fight with you. As he spoke, he leaned in front of Zhang Yi and winked at him. After all, your current strength is probably no less than that of Yuan Kangai back then, right? Everyone in Xianhe City knew that Zhang Yi had killed Yuan Kangai, so they thought that Zhang Yi had absorbed Yuan Kangai's power, and now his strength had reached Yuan Kangai's level. Zhang Yi put his hands in his pockets, sighed softly and said, it's not as simple as you think. That battle, oh, let's not talk about it. Take me to see the investigation team first. If it was the past, Zhang Yi wouldn't mind that Crossing Shan and others thought he was very powerful. But now it's different. Now, he is really strong, but he has to pretend that he is not that strong. Because he doesn't want to be missed by the Jiangnan region, because of his strength. But he also knew that no matter how much he explained, Crossing Shan might not believe it. So Zhang Yi only said half of the words and let Crossing Shan think for himself. As for whether he believes it or not, that's up to him. Right now, the most important thing for Zhang Yi is to communicate with the investigation team first. Crossing Shan smiled and said, come with me. He moved out of the way, and when Zhang Yi walked over, he followed Zhang Yi half a step behind. While walking, Crossing Shan said to Zhang Yi, that battle was too tragic. Wei Dinghe died in the battle, and more than % of the aliens under our family were killed or injured. Even the investigation team with such a strong strength was affected. A very serious injury. Old classmate, you will be the boss in Xianhe City from now on. You have to cover your brother. Zhang Yi glanced at him and smiled non-committally. He has no interest in things like expanding his power. If there are too many people and things under his control, it will only cause more trouble for himself. How could he be more at ease now? The two chatted casually on the road. Zhang Yi basically knew what Crossing Shan said, and Crossing Shan didn't dare to disclose the situation of the investigation team, so he didn't get any useful information. Soon, Zhang Yi came to the place where the investigation team was recuperating. It is located in the underground refuge, and it is a very high-level recuperation room. Although it is not comparable to Zhang Yi's big villa, it is already the top treatment in the entire Qingpu base. After sending the person, Crossing Shan left here very consciously. However, the appearance of Zhang Yi made the atmosphere of the investigation team a little dignified. Among the 6 people, some were looking at him, while others had a hint of hostility in their eyes. Undoubtedly, Wu Di, who has always had a problem with Zhang Yi, has the most vicious eyes. He was also the first to say hello to Zhang Yi. What are you doing here? Zhang Yi looked at Wu Di. This kid's hair was all white, and the previous battle had greatly depleted his vitality. But now when he looks at Zhang Yi, although he still pretends to be unhappy, he is not as hostile as before. In the past, Zhang Yi never understood why this guy had such a bad attitude towards him. Could it be that, because he was too handsome, he aroused his jealousy? Zhang Yi felt so slanderous in his heart. However, he still raised his eyelids lightly and said leisurely with his hands behind his back, "The battle is over. Can I come and see the wounded? After all, everyone may have to work together in the future. If I'm too indifferent, people may say that I'm unreasonable and do not know how to sympathize with the team members." As soon as these words came out, almost everyone in the investigation team frowned. The phrase sympathize with the team members seems to have the meaning of taking oneself as the captain. Although some people in the investigation team welcome Zhang Yi's joining, it doesn't mean that they are willing to accept a domineering person even though Zhang Yi does have the capital to be domineering. Wu Di was furious, pointing at Zhang Yi's nose and angrily reprimanded, "What are you proud of? Just because you want to join our investigation team, do you have the qualifications?" Zhang Yi glanced at him lightly. His eyes were calm, but there was a kind of condescending look down. "Just because I solved Yuan Khan guy, do you think I'm qualified?" This sentence choked Wu Di. When they fought Yuan Khan guy back then, their investigation team didn't get any advantage, and even he himself almost ran out of fuel and died. Without Zhang Yi, they might all die in battle. From this perspective, they all owe Zhang Yi a favor. But of course Wu Di didn't want to admit this, so he turned his head away with a dark face. Seeing this, Zhang Yi's smile grew stronger. He straightened his chest and glanced over everyone. "After you go back, don't forget to explain the situation in Qianhe City to the senior management of the Jiangnan district. Let them know my contribution. I'm very sorry for the death of the military captain of the frontier army. If I have this opportunity, I hope to inherit his will to defend this land and bring a harmonious and happy life to the people in the Jiangnan region." After speaking, everyone's scalps were numb and goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. Now, everyone's favorability towards Zhang Yi dropped even more seriously. At this time, Zhang Yi, speaking in an official accent, was completely villain. Compared with his humble and cautious appearance when the investigation team first came to Qianhe City, he was completely two people. Bailey Changqing coughed, feeling a little unhappy in his heart, but he still forced a smile on his face and said, "Don't worry, we won't forget your contribution. It's just that the top management has to decide about joining the investigation team." Zhang Yi laughed and said, "It's just one more process. Tell me, who else is there?" He walked over and hugged Bailey Changqing. "Brother Bailey, let's go out and talk. There are some things that are not suitable for ordinary team members." As he speaks, he doesn't forget to glance at the others in the room. Everyone gritted their teeth. If they hadn't considered that Zhang Yi's strength might have reached an unimaginable level, they would really have come up to gang fights. Bailey Changqing glanced at Zhang Yi and wanted to test Zhang Yi's attitude in his heart. So he nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, since you want to talk to me alone, I will naturally accompany you." The two left the room shoulder to shoulder. As soon as they left, a pot exploded in the room. Kang Sheng hugged his muscular arms and said with a displeased face, "This Zhang Yi is too arrogant. He hasn't joined our team yet, he just looks aloof. If he really came, he might even be a captain. The tail must not be raised to the sky." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.